Chapter 2642. Jiyu Fei was the second person to return alive from the ancient road to heaven. The white-haired youth who rode the crane was a mystery. No one could find him. Therefore, many people had their eyes on Jiyu Fei. An ancestor-level existence from the Yarotai ancient sacred ground, accompanied by the saintess of the Yarotai ancient sacred ground, Yaoji, came to Wanxiang City and was received by Jiyu Zhong into the city lord's mansion. The Yarotai ancient sacred ground's ancestor stayed in the city lord's mansion for half an hour before he left the city with Yaoji and returned to the Yarotai ancient sacred ground. As soon as the Yarotai ancient sacred ground's ancestor left, the Zhao clan of the primordial antiquity, Zhao Xiong, came to Wanxiang City and said that he wanted to see Jiyu Fei. Very quickly, the Zhao clan's Zhao Xiong was approached by the Iron Blood Taoist. This time, it only took half an hour for the Zhao clan's Zhao Xiong to come out from the city lord's mansion and left Wanxiang City. The Zhao clan's Zhao clan left, and the Jiang clan's clan master came to Wanxiang City. The Jiang clan of the primordial antiquity was Jiang Renhuang's clan, and Jiang Renhuang was the only peerless human ruler in this world. Jiyu Fei did not dare to neglect the Jiang clan of the primordial antiquity. He immediately came out to welcome the Jiang clan's Zhao Xiong into the city lord's mansion of Wanxiang City. Half an hour later, the Jiang clan's clan master took his leave. He used the Great Void teleportation technique and left, as if he was in a hurry to return. Many experts came to visit, but apart from a limited number of people, Jiyu Fei did not see anyone else. However, the situation on the ancient road to heaven quickly spread out. The end of the ancient road to heaven was the heaven realm. However, the exit of the ancient road to heaven in the heaven realm was a forbidden area in the heaven realm. The ancient saints were somewhat surprised to receive this news. They could not believe that the exit of the ancient road to heaven was a forbidden area. The forbidden area of the heaven realm was not simple. It had existed since ancient times, and after the baptism of countless years, it still existed. It seemed that if they wanted to enter the heaven realm, they would have to pay a huge price. For the ancient desolate powers, even if they could enter the heaven realm, they would suffer heavy losses. Since they knew the truth of the ancient heaven ascension road, some of the superpowers started to make preparations to conquer the ancient heaven ascension road. Jiang Renhuang had already returned to the Jiang clan. Some people wanted to ask him for help, but he didn't seem to be interested in the ancient road to heaven. He didn't seem to want to help at all. If Jiang Renhuang made his move, it would not be difficult for him to destroy the forbidden area in the heaven realm. However, if the human emperor did not act, then it would not be easy to flatten the heaven realm's forbidden area. A few desolate powers began to form alliances. The desolate Zhu clan and the desolate Zhao clan secretly met and formed an alliance. The Li family was the main family of the supreme Dao ancestor, and they had no intention of allying with other factions. Out of the four great primordial clans, only the primordial Jiang clan and the primordial Li clan did not form an alliance with the other clans. This was because the two clans had extremely deep foundations. After being silent for more than 10 days, there were finally people who started their expedition on the ancient road to heaven. This time, the person who stood out was a heavenly venerable from the Li clan of the desolate clan. His heavenly venerable's powerful aura was so oppressive that everyone could barely breathe. The other experts from the Li clan of the desolate clan also came. They stood guard in front of the ancient road to heaven. The Li clan inherited the Dao ancestors' inheritance. Naturally, they cultivated the immortal Dao. This heavenly venerable was a young man in purple. His name was Li Changsheng, an ancestor-level existence from the Li clan of the desolate clan. Li Changsheng did not hesitate. He directly stepped on the ancient road to heaven. Very quickly, his figure disappeared from the ancient road to heaven. Roar! Very quickly, an earth-shattering roar came from the ancient road to heaven. The experts from the Li clan of the desolate clan guarding outside the ancient road to heaven were extremely nervous. Their ancestor was fighting on the ancient road to heaven, but they could not help at all. A terrifying aura was constantly emitting from the ancient road to heaven, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Li Changsheng was a heavenly venerable of the immortal Dao. As a heavenly venerable of the immortal Dao, He indeed had the qualifications to be arrogant. However, this time seemed to be different. The ancient road to heaven began to tremble. Blood rained down on the ancient road. The putrid blood was no longer the blood essence of the saints, but the blood of some unknown ferocious beasts. The blood also contained an enormous amount of essence. When the blood sprinkled on the ancient road to heaven, it was immediately absorbed by the ancient road to heaven, quickly losing its spirituality. Very quickly, the corpse of a ferocious beast fell from the ancient road to heaven. What's going on? Didn't they say that the end of the ancient road to heaven is filled with strange blood shadows? Someone asked. The unknown ferocious beast's body was shrouded in a horrifying aura. Even though it was dead, the aura still existed. The battle continued, the roars became more and more frequent, as if there was a group of ferocious beasts besieging Li Changsheng. At the end of the ancient road to heaven, there was another unimaginable change. These unknown ferocious beasts should be the living beings in the forbidden area of the heaven realm. Without exception, these living beings were all extremely powerful, capable of tearing saints into pieces. No wonder even ancient saints would fall on this ancient road to heaven. However, very quickly, the ancient road to heaven gradually calmed down. Everyone stared at the exit of the ancient road to heaven. However, Li Changsheng did not come out from the ancient road to heaven. He seemed to have defeated all the unknown beasts. Very quickly, a strange wave came down from the ancient road to heaven. That old man from the Li clan is still fighting? An ancient saint whispered. Could it be that even Saint Venerables can't enter the heaven realm? Someone guessed. Saint Venerables were the venerables of the saints. They were stronger than great saints and only weaker than quasi-supremes. If even the longevity Saint Venerables could not enter the heaven realm, then many people would be in for a tragedy. After more than 2 hours, the longevity Saint Venerables returned from the ancient road to heaven. His body was stained with blood, and his clothes were torn in a few places. There was a scratch on his shoulder that was so deep that his bones could be seen. The longevity Saint Venerables did not manage to enter the heaven realm and returned with injuries. This shocked the experts of the Li clan who were guarding outside the ancient road to heaven. This longevity Saint Venerables was the third person to walk out of the ancient road to heaven alive. The longevity Saint Venerables did not say much to the people of the Li clan. He left the Tian market with the experts of the Li clan and returned to the Li clan's temporary residence in the eastern region. Jiu Fei was right. Something ominous happened at the end of the ancient road. The longevity Saint Venerables suddenly sighed after returning to the Li clan. The wound on his shoulder was caused by those things at the end of the ancient road. Chapter 2643. The Li clan's foundation was incomparably deep. It should be known that the Li clan was the original clan of the legendary Supreme Tao ancestor. This incomparably ancient clan was the first to step forward at this time to conquer the ancient road to heaven. This action of the Li clan attracted the attention of all the experts on the Tenglong continent. Even experts from other regions of the ancestral Dragon Star rushed to the eastern region to enter the sky market. It should be known that the Li clan's expedition to the ancient road to heaven was absolutely a huge matter. Once the Li clan cleared the path to heaven, the mortal world and the heavenly realm would be connected. This way, the cultivators of the mortal world would be able to enter the heavenly realm at will, and the cultivators of the heavenly realm would be able to descend at will. However, the path to heaven was much more difficult to clear than everyone had imagined. Something ominous had happened at the end of the ancient road to heaven. Even the longevity sovereign had to return in failure. The people of the Li clan had temporarily retreated, but they did not give up. They still had trump cards that they had yet to use. Seeing that even the Li clan had failed to clear the path to heaven, the upper echelons of the other superpowers were shocked. The Li clan's strength was undeniable. However, everyone knew that the Li clan would not give up so easily. While the Li clan's expedition to the ancient road to heaven had failed, someone in the heavenly realm was also preparing to conquer the West Nether Ocean, a forbidden area that had existed for countless years. This was because the exit of the ancient road to heaven was in the depths of the West Nether Ocean. If they wanted the heavenly realm and the mortal world to be unobstructed, they had to flatten this ancient forbidden area. Of course, not everyone would dare to flatten the forbidden area. After all, there was a reason why the West Nether Ocean had existed for countless years. In ancient times, there were supremes who wanted to flatten the forbidden areas of the heavenly realm. However, they did not take any action in the end. Wanting to flatten the forbidden area was definitely a crazy thing to do. However, someone had done it now. Furthermore, no one had expected that the person leading the charge would be the Eastern Region Heavenly Emperor, Yuan Gu. The primordial celestial the Arch had teamed up with the other two big shots of the Heaven Realm to prepare for the expedition to the Forbidden Zone. At this time, war chariots rushed over from the West Dark Sea. Each war chariot emitted an incomparably powerful aura, and the silhouettes of powerhouses could be faintly seen on the chariots. For a moment, the clouds of battle gathered densely outside the western underworld sea. Beams of powerful divine light streaked across the dusky sky and landed on the outskirts of the western underworld sea. At this moment, a monstrous crimson divine light suddenly appeared in the southern sky, illuminating half the sky in a crimson color. An extremely powerful ripple of energy came from the south. Then, streaks of fiery light appeared in the southern sky, rushing towards the west underworld sea. Swoosh! A dazzling fiery light streaked across the sky and landed directly on a mountain on the outskirts of the West Dark Sea. The fiery light dissipated, and a general wearing red armor and holding a crimson fire divine spear appeared. Powerful fire elemental energy rippled out from the general's body. Then, streaks of fiery light descended from the sky and landed behind the general. Soldiers wearing flaming armor and holding spears appeared behind the general. Soon, the top of the mountain was filled with soldiers. The entire mountain looked like it was on fire, and a blazing aura spread out from the top of the mountain. The powerhouses on the outskirts of the West Dark Sea were shocked. The Southern Fire Emperor's war weapon? Someone whispered. The arrival of the Fire Emperor's war weapon caused a huge commotion. The Southern Fire Emperor was an ancestor-level existence in the Heaven Realm. He had originally been sleeping in the depths of the Southern Earth's fire vein and had only awakened 500 years ago. When this Fire Emperor woke up, he caused a huge commotion and even fought a great battle with the God Emperor of the South. Although the Fire Emperor hadn't appeared yet, the Fire Emperor's war weapon was different. It was a sharp sword in the Fire Emperor's hand, and it had fought for him everywhere. Soon, endless immortal light rushed out from the eastern sky. Countless immortal soldiers and generals appeared in the distant sky and rushed towards the West Dark Sea. The soaring murderous aura caused the sky and earth to change color. Everyone was shocked. This was the Celestial Emperor's war weapon, the most elite soldier under the command of the Eastern Region Heavenly Emperor Yuan Gu. This war weapon had played a great role in Yuan Gu's unification of the Eastern Region. Originally, the commander of this Celestial Emperor's war weapon was Yuan Gu's only son. However, Yuan Gu's only son had died at the hands of Gu Fei. Now, the commander of this war weapon was the first divine general of the ancient Heavenly Emperor, Shi. The first divine general of the ancient Heavenly Emperor, Shi, was definitely a terrifying god of death. This god of death was a saint emperor who had entered the Tao through killing. His killing nature was so strong that even the great demons of the demons couldn't compare to him. When the ancient Heavenly Emperor had annihilated the Nether sect, this first divine general had killed millions of soldiers of the Nether sect. His methods were extremely ruthless. The Nether sect had shown signs of resurgence in recent years. The Netherworld Saintess hadn't died and had secretly gathered the remnants of the Nether sect, causing quite a bit of trouble for the ancient Heavenly Emperor. Shi rose with 100,000 Celestial Emperor's war weapons. His silver armor illuminated the sky, and his immortal aura dispersed the deathly aura outside the West Dark Sea. After the 100,000 Celestial Emperor's war weapons arrived outside the West Dark Sea, they stopped high in the sky. The sky and earth fell silent, and everyone felt an extreme pressure. The 100,000 Celestial Emperor's war weapons stood quietly in the void, their banners fluttering in the wind. No one said a word. This was a well-disciplined celestial army. The Fire Emperor and the Sky Emperor had both sent their most elite soldiers. However, the last emperor didn't send any soldiers, because he had come personally. This was a burly man with a big black blade on his back. He had a full beard and wore a beast skin draped over his body. He looked no different from an ordinary hunter in the mountains. This burly man didn't emit any powerful aura. He just leaned against a boulder on a short mountain, lazily looking at the dark sea in front of him. At this time, Shi and the commander of the Fire Emperor's war weapons flew in front of the burly man and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Di Zun." Shi and the commander of the Fire Emperor's war weapons didn't dare to be negligent. "He's the barbarian emperor? The supreme expert of the Heaven Realm's barbarian race?" someone exclaimed. The barbarian emperor was a peerless expert from the wildlands. He was known as an emperor in the Heaven Realm. Even Yuan Jiyu and the Fire Emperor didn't dare to look down on this emperor. The Heaven Realm was boundlessly vast, and the wildlands were said to have 100,000 barbarians. The barbarians were naturally warlike, so this barbarian emperor was more suitable to be called a war emperor. "Alright, I hate these unnecessary formalities. I just want to know when Yuan Jiyu and the Fire Emperor will arrive." Chapter 2644. The barbarian emperor was someone who relied on his own strength to rise up in the desolate lands. Although he didn't have 100,000 soldiers under him, didn't have a luxurious emperor palace, and didn't have many followers, no one dared to underestimate him. He alone was stronger than 100,000 soldiers. Raising the Forbidden Region was an incomparably crazy thing to do. However, when the Yuan Ancient Heaven and Earth invited him to act, he agreed without any hesitation. The barbarian emperor has arrived, but the Yuan Ancient Heavenly Empyrean and the Fire Emperor have yet to appear. This more or less caused the barbarian emperor to feel somewhat unhappy. In his eyes, 100,000 soldiers were nothing. He could simply blow them all away with a single breath. "My master has always been here." Shi spoke. "Che, that's just an incarnation. His true body isn't here. What does this count for? Could it be that Yuan Ancient doesn't place this daddy in his eyes?" The barbarian emperor spoke in a low voice. Shi's forehead was drenched in sweat. He lowered his head, not knowing what to say for a moment. Although he was a god of slaughter and had once killed 1,000,000 soldiers of the Netherworld sect, he was very clear that he wasn't even worth a fart in front of the barbarian emperor. "Where's the Fire Emperor? He didn't even come. What's the point of sending a bunch of good-for-nothings here?" The barbarian emperor glanced at the general under the Fire Emperor and spoke. My master's Di Zun will be here soon. Please don't be impatient." That god general hurriedly spoke. The barbarian emperor nodded. "All of you, scram." The barbarian emperor waved his hand. Shi and the Fire Emperor felt as though they had just been pardoned. They hurriedly bowed to the barbarian emperor and soared into the sky, returning to their respective camps. The pressure that the barbarian emperor gave them was simply too great. Western Dark Sea. The barbarian emperor leaned against a huge rock as he stared at the depths of the Western Dark Sea. The sky was dark, the sea was pitch black, and deathly chi permeated the air. There seemed to be heart-palpitating roars coming from the void. It was as though there were trillions of living beings struggling in the sea. Countless souls wanted to break free from the sea of bitterness. Interesting. The barbarian emperor's gaze pierced through the space before him as though he saw something that interested him. At this moment, the atmosphere in the periphery of the West Netherworld Sea was extremely oppressive. Countless Heaven Realm experts were watching and guessing whether the three venerable emperors would be able to conquer the West Netherworld Sea, a forbidden area. Some people were very optimistic. With the three venerable sovereigns taking action, they would definitely be able to flatten the forbidden area. However, there were also people who were very pessimistic. It should be noted that the three great venerable emperors could achieve what even supreme venerables couldn't in ancient times. Time passed by, but the Western Netherworld Sea was still calm, and there were no changes. Boom! An hour later, a ball of divine fire suddenly appeared in the southern sky. That ball of divine fire was like a divine sun, emitting endless fiery light that illuminated the dusky world. A supreme heavenly venerate aura spread out from the divine fire, and everyone felt as if a huge mountain was suddenly pressing down on them. Some people couldn't bear the pressure and had no choice but to retreat. The Fire Emperor is here. What does he mean by this? Is he trying to clear the area? Some people were shocked and angered, but they had no choice but to retreat because the pressure was too strong. Even sages had to retreat. Some quasi-sages had no choice but to leave this place. That ball of fire instantly arrived at the periphery of the West Netherworld Sea. Within the flames, a silhouette could be faintly seen, causing the void to tremble. It was as though even the heavens and earth couldn't contain this silhouette. Fire Emperor, you are finally here. The barbarian emperor who was leaning against a huge rock stood up at this moment. Old barbarian, you are really early. In the sky, a majestic voice rang out from that ball of divine fire. Within the flames, runes could be faintly seen as the silhouettes of firebirds danced in the air. Is Yuan Gu's true body not coming? The barbarian emperor asked. Just as the sound of the barbarian emperor's voice faded, a war chariot rushed over from the eastern sky. 9 beams of immortal light revolved around the war chariot, and the sound of immortal music could be heard in the air. A glowing silhouette stood on the war chariot. Numerous immortal runes could be faintly seen on his body, as though a supreme immortal lord had descended. He really knows how to act. The barbarian emperor disdained all of this. One must know that what's the use of such extravagance? The most important thing was strength. As long as one was strong enough, even emperors would have to kneel before them. This emperor who rose up from the desolate mountains pursued extreme strength. Extravagance and extravagance were all fleeting clouds in his eyes. Yuan Gu, aren't you too insincere? It's fine if you really sent an incarnation over. At this moment, the Fire Emperor was also unhappy. Given his cultivation base, he could naturally tell that the figure on the war chariot was only an incarnation and not his true body. This fellow is unreliable. I think it's better for us to disband. The barbarian emperor casually spoke. Although fighting in the forbidden region was very challenging, he didn't wish to be used as a tool by others. If the true body of the Yuan Gu Heavenly Emperor wasn't here, he wouldn't act. Makes sense. The Fire Emperor nodded. The two of you want to wave your hands now? Are you guys willing? That figure on the war chariot suddenly spoke. If your true body isn't here, what are you still doing? The barbarian emperor was unhappy. This Yuan Gu was simply a hoodwinker. After tricking them here, he sent an insignificant incarnation over. Yuan Gu's true body had been hiding in the dark and had only sent his incarnation to fight. Even if his incarnation had fallen, his true body would not have been injured at all. Yuan Gu would have been fighting with his life on the line. How could there be such a good thing in this world? Let alone the barbarian emperor, even the Fire Emperor was unhappy. What is this? At this moment, Yuan Gu's right hand flipped as an item appeared in his hand. But after that, he kept it away. This, the barbarian emperor and Fire Emperor both started when they saw that item. This was especially so for the barbarian emperor. His expression instantly changed. Why? Is my incarnation qualified? Yuan Gu spoke. He was very clear that his incarnation wasn't qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as the barbarian emperor and Fire Emperor. However, he brought a supreme treasure with him. The combat strength of his incarnation was definitely not inferior to the barbarian emperor and Fire Emperor. Let's do it then. The barbarian emperor grew excited. A heaven-shaking battle intent gushed forth from him, causing the expressions of the Fire Emperor and Yuan Gu to involuntarily change. This barbarian emperor truly had some capabilities. The three of them gathered together. An hour later, the barbarian emperor directly unsheathed the black saber on his back and slashed out at the Western Dark Sea. Swish. Chapter 2645. The battle finally began. The barbarian emperor was the first to act. He only slashed out a single saber strike, but this saber strike directly broke apart the Western Dark Sea. The boundless Tao laws were directly destroyed by that black saber of his. The silent Western Dark Sea trembled violently. The black saber light descended from the sky with unstoppable might, actually cleaving the Western Dark Sea into two. A gigantic saber scar appeared in the middle of the Western Dark Sea. It was so vast that one couldn't see the end of it with a single glance. Two gigantic waves that were thousands of meters tall gushed forth. Within the churning waves, countless white bones could be seen. That is, everyone was stunned when they saw this scene. The might of this saber strike of the barbarian emperor was simply too overwhelming. It could even split the heavens and earth apart. And the countless white bones in the western dark sea caused everyone's hair to stand on end. It was like an azura hell that devoured all life. It was hard to imagine how this forbidden zone was formed, but one thing was certain. Countless living beings had fallen in this forbidden zone. The saber strike of the barbarian emperor broke apart the western dark sea. The countless white bones at the bottom of the sea floated up and appeared before the eyes of everyone. A terrifying death aura erupted forth from the depths of the western dark sea. Roar! A terrifying roar rang out, causing the entire western dark sea to tremble. Those two gigantic waves that were thousands of meters tall exploded as boundless seawater mixed with white bones rained down from the sky. Rumble tilde the western dark sea trembled as the seawater churned violently. A figure stood up from the depths of the western dark sea. This was a skeleton that was as large as a mountain. Within the skull, a ball of black light could be seen. Two beams of black light shot out from its eye sockets, each of them 1,000 meters long. Boundless death aura gushed forth from this skeleton. It was as terrifying as a death god that crawled out from the depths of hell. What is that thing? Everyone who had retreated far away felt indescribably shocked. An unknown life form actually appeared in the western dark sea. Not only that, this unknown life form was extremely powerful. Death spirit. At this time, the primordial emperor Xian and the fire emperor were ready to attack, especially the fire emperor, who was extremely powerful and had 9 fire dragons circling around him. They were formed by 9 dragon-shaped Tao patterns, not the real 9 heavens fire dragons. Roar! That incomparably gigantic skeleton roared in rage. A powerful divine sense fluctuation gushed forth from its skull. After that, the skeleton directly stretched out its right hand and slapped out towards the barbarian emperor. Boundless death energy gushed forth from that skeletal hand. This gigantic hand shattered the void as the Tao laws of death cascaded down from it, shooting towards the barbarian emperor. Kill! The barbarian emperor roared in rage. He brandished the black saber in his hand as his long hair fluttered in the wind. He directly charged into the western dark sea, clashing with the skeleton. The battle erupted. The barbarian emperor slashed out with his saber, directly destroying the Tao laws of death from the bone claw. The saber light that was incomparably sharp ruthlessly slashed down on the bone claw. Clang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. When the barbarian emperor's saber slashed down on the bone claw, sparks flew in all directions. He didn't manage to sever the bone claw of the death spirit. Swish! The barbarian emperor's silhouette moved rapidly, soaring up into the sky. With a swing of his saber, he actually cleaved down on the head of the death spirit. It was a simple and direct attack, yet it displayed immense might. This saber strike of the barbarian emperor directly broke through the void, even breaking apart the Tao laws. Clang! When the black saber in the barbarian emperor's hand landed on the skull of the death spirit, the sound of metal clashing could still be heard. It was unable to break through the skull of the death spirit. What a tough bone! The barbarian emperor was incomparably shocked. At this moment, the death spirit opened its mouth and spat out a mouthful of black flames towards the barbarian emperor. Under the scorching heat of the flames, the void was actually silently destroyed. This was a terrifying type of flame, it was the underworld fire of hell. Once one was burned by it, even a saint venerable would be incinerated into ashes, their bodies and souls destroyed. Swish! The barbarian emperor directly retreated. At this moment, 9 fire dragons descended from the sky, breaking apart the death chi as they lunged towards the death spirit. Each of the fire dragons emitted terrifying energy fluctuations of a saint venerable. The fire emperor finally acted. Boom! A thunderous sound rang out as the 9 fire dragons slammed into the body of the death spirit. The extreme young divine fire caused the void to collapse from the heat. Roar! The death spirit roared as a supreme death energy erupted forth from the gigantic skull. Towering black flames erupted forth from the body of the death spirit, clashing against the extreme yang divine fire. The underworld fire of hell and extreme yang divine fire were two types of flames that walked the path of extremes. The 9 fire dragons coiled around the death spirit as the extreme yang divine fire burned the skeleton of the death spirit, causing explosive sounds to ring out. The barbarian emperor who had retreated had a strange look on his face. He couldn't do anything to the death spirit even if he used his full strength. Yet, this fire emperor was actually able to suppress the death spirit. This caused him to feel somewhat unhappy. Everything in the world had a natural counter to each other. The extreme yang true fire was the nemesis of this type of death spirit. The barbarian emperor had no choice but to accept this. In the end, the 9 fire dragons turned into a furnace and directly refined the dead spirit in the furnace. Even the hellfire was completely refined by the extreme yang real fire. Just as the fire emperor used his great technique to refine the death spirit, a powerful divine sense fluctuation was emitted from the netherworld sea. A figure stood up from the netherworld sea. This is, when the 3 emperors saw this figure, they couldn't help but be shocked. This was because it was a person with flesh and blood. However, this person's eyes were emitting a demonic blood-red light. This person emitted an incomparably powerful death chi as if the god of the underworld had descended to the world. Yuan Jiyu, it's your turn this time. The barbarian emperor glanced at Yuan Jiyu and said. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor, who was standing on the war chariot, snorted coldly. He didn't say anything and directly drove the war chariot towards the evil-looking man standing on the sea. Boom! That evil-looking man suddenly punched out. A powerful force erupted from his fist. It was a simple and direct punch, but it shook the entire heaven and earth. Bang! The primordial celestial the arch made a move. A golden hand appeared in the void and collided with the fists of the evil-looking man, producing a muffled sound. This is, the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor only felt an extremely powerful death energy enter his body from his palm. His entire body was sent flying along with the war chariot. His right hand turned deathly grey in an instant. His entire palm was corroded by the death energy and turned deathly grey. All signs of life had been severed. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor gritted his teeth and waved his left hand, directly chopping off his right hand. Then, the flesh and bones around the wound regenerated and a new hand grew out in the blink of an eye. Roar! The evil-looking man roared and pounced towards the ancient Yuan heaven and earth ferociously. A deathly grey radiance was emitted from his body. This was the terrifying light of death. As long as one was enveloped by this light of death, even a sage's vitality would be instantly severed and they would die. Flying immortal sword. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor did not dare to be negligent. He immediately used his killer move. With a wave of his right hand, a dazzling golden swordlight immediately rushed out of his hand. An extremely sharp sword chi rippled out from his body. The evil-looking man directly reached out and slapped the flying immortal swordlight. He was not afraid of the flying immortal swordlight at all. Then, a shocking scene unfolded. That fiendish demon slapped the swordlight with his palm, and the swordlight was actually slapped away. What? The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor was truly shocked. He had never imagined that his opponent would be so powerful as to be able to slap away his flying immortal swordlight. The power of the flying immortal swordlight was unquestionable. Swish! After slapping away the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor's flying immortal swordlight, the evil-looking man stretched out his hands and directly grabbed the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor. The evil-looking man's fingernails were like 10 incomparably sharp swords. If the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor was caught by this evil-looking man, there would definitely be 10 bloody holes on his chest. Chaotic upheaval. Celestial Emperor Yuan Jiyu growled and a ball of immortal light surged out of his body. The evil that was pouncing towards him was immediately teleported away by a force. He had mastered the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. Could this guy be one of the 9 disciples of the supreme Tao ancestor? The barbarian emperor and the fire emperor exchanged glances, feeling astonished. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor had actually mastered the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao. One should know that the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao were supreme divine techniques created by the supreme Tao ancestor. The Supreme Tao ancestor had only imparted these 9 supreme techniques to his 9 disciples. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor shouted. The flying immortal swordlight that had been slapped away by the evil-looking man instantly flew back. Immediately after, the evil-looking man's head flew into the air. Under the interference of the chaotic upheaval, the evil-looking man simply couldn't stabilize his body and couldn't dodge the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor's sword. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor unleashed another sword strike, directly piercing the evil-looking man's head and shattering its origin spirit. The entire West Dark Sea boiled when the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor killed the evil-looking man. Then, one figure after another stood up from the sea. Very quickly, the surface of the West Dark Sea was densely packed with people. A layer of deathly grey mist rose from the surface of the sea. This was an army of undead. At this moment, the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor waved his hand and the celestial Theater's troops that were hovering in the sky outside the West Dark Sea immediately charged into the West Dark Sea. It definitely wasn't a coincidence that the West Dark Sea had existed for so many years. The undead army also moved. Under the leadership of a powerful undead, they charged towards the celestial Theater's troops led by Shi. Chapter 2646. Under Shi's lead, the Celestial Emperor's soldier charged into the West Underworld Sea and clashed violently with the undead army in the sea. Kill. Shi took the lead and swept the divine spear in his hand. Hundreds of undead in front of him were immediately sent flying. They exploded in the air and turned into bone powder that scattered into the West Underworld Sea. Wherever this killer went, large swathes of undead turned into ashes. The Celestial Emperor's soldier and the undead army fought fiercely. Then, the Fire Emperor's soldier also joined the battle under the lead of the general. In an instant, the West Underworld Sea was filled with battle cries. Be it in the air or on the sea, there were figures fighting for their lives everywhere. Clang! Just as Shi was about to kill a few of the best of the undead army, a skeleton with a dazzling golden body wielded a great sword and blocked Shi's spear. Good. Finally, a decent guy. Shi grinned and a cold and ruthless smile appeared on his face. Kill. Within the skull of the golden skeleton, there was a golden flame burning within the bones. It was as dazzling as a golden sun. This golden skeleton was extraordinary. Although it came from the West Underworld Sea where the aura of death was condensed, it had a holy aura, as if all the aura of death had faded away. It waved the golden sword in its hand and slashed at the approaching Shi. Whoosh! A golden sword light immediately rushed out from the golden skeleton's sword. In an instant, it soared tens of thousands of feet and was extremely powerful. Shi didn't dare to be careless. After all, this golden skeleton's cultivation and combat strength were definitely not inferior to his. Just in time, Shi waved the spear in his hand to meet the attack. Clang! The spear in Shi's hand collided with the golden sword in the golden skeleton's hand, causing a loud sound of metal clashing. The sound pierced through stone and gold and spread far and wide. The two experts were incomparably powerful as they clashed head-on. The two figures quickly separated. Shi's immortal aura was vast and mighty, and his silver armor was surrounded by rays of immortal light. Within the immortal light, there were indistinct runes. The golden skeleton's entire body was covered by a ball of golden light, and the golden divine fire in its skull became even more dazzling. This was an extremely powerful undead. Its cultivation and combat strength were not inferior to Shi's. It was definitely a rare opponent for Shi. The two figures clashed once again. The powerful ripples of Saint Kings rippled out, causing the entire region of space to tremble. Cracks in space appeared, like black lightning bolts. The battle between Saint Emperors was extremely fierce. The number 1 general under the Fire Emperor had also met a strong opponent, and they were locked in a fight. At this moment, the 3 emperors had already entered the depths of the Western Underworld Sea and were close to the ancient road to heaven. However, they were in big trouble. A pitch-black palace rose from the West Dark Sea and blocked their path. An ancient aura was emitted from the palace. It was an ancient palace that was filled with the marks of time, and there were traces of swords, spears, swords, and halberds. The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch and the others couldn't help but feel uneasy in front of such an ancient palace. Even the fearless barbarian the Arch had a grave expression on his face at this moment. The ancient palace wasn't big, and the door was open. There was a large hall inside, and there was a throne in the middle of the hall. A white skeleton was sitting on the throne. A faint green flame flickered in the skull of the skeleton, as if it could be extinguished at any time. The white skeleton had some bone armor on its body, and some parts of its body had even regrown flesh. This white skeleton was definitely an unimaginably powerful antique. The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch and the others didn't dare to act rashly just by sitting there quietly. What should we do? The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch glanced at the Fire Emperor and the Barbarian the Arch. What else can we do? Just flatten it. The Barbarian the Arch said forcefully. That's right. The Fire Emperor nodded. If they couldn't flatten this ancient palace, they wouldn't be able to advance. How arrogant. Right at this moment, an aged voice resounded in their hearts, and the three emperors were instantly shocked. Who's talking? Come out and fight if you have the guts. The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch stared at the door of the ancient palace and said. Humph. That person sneered and said, You three brats aren't qualified for me to take action. As he said that, a figure walked out of the ancient palace. It was a different skeleton, and its skull was emitting purple divine light. Kill them for me. The old voice rang out. Swish. The purple skeleton took a step forward and disappeared on the spot. In the next moment, it appeared in front of the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch and reached out with its 5 fingers to grab the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch's abdomen. Divine light was emitting from the bone claw, and runes were faintly visible. Chaotic reversal. The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch didn't think too much about it. The bone claw suddenly changed direction, and the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch took advantage of this opportunity to attack the purple skeleton. Bam! The ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch punched the purple skeleton's head, and powerful immortal Tao energy erupted from his fist. The purple skeleton was immediately sent flying by the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch's punch. At this moment, a black light flashed. The barbarian the Arch also made a move. He waved the black iron blade in his hand and slashed at the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch, trying to split the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch in two. Ha! The black iron blade actually encountered great resistance when it slashed at the ancient Yuan Celestial the Arch. Rumble. At this time, the Fire Emperor used a great technique, conjured a furnace, and sucked the purple skeleton into the furnace. Then, he wanted to completely refine it. When the 3 emperors joined forces, even the powerful purple skeleton would be suppressed. Boom! Just when everyone thought that they could get rid of this purple skeleton, a loud sound rang out. The furnace that the Fire Emperor had conjured exploded. The purple skeleton rushed out. Clang! The sound of metal clanging rang out as black chains formed from the law of death curled around the purple skeleton's body. Chapter 2647. The purple skeleton was so powerful that the Fire Emperor hadn't been able to refine it even after putting it into the furnace. Clang! The purple skeleton waved its hand, causing the sound of metal clashing to resound. Divine chains of order rushed out of its body and entangled the 3 emperors. Swoosh! A divine chain of order pierced through the void and swept towards the ancient heavenly emperor, who was standing on the chariot. However, a shocking scene unfolded. The divine chain of order, which was about to entangle the ancient heavenly emperor, inexplicably lost its aim and slid to the side. At this moment, the chaotic force covered the ancient heavenly emperor's entire body. The ancient heavenly emperor could be said to be an invincible existence. Any attack on him would be countered by him. The ancient heavenly emperor directly displayed the flying celestial sword principle. A shocking sword light immediately rushed out of his hand and tore through the void as it fell towards the purple skeleton. Clang! A divine chain of order rushed out of the purple skeleton's body and entangled upwards, trying to block the ancient heavenly emperor's sword light. However, the flying celestial sword light actually cut through the divine order chains and landed on the purple skeleton's head, leaving a long sword mark on the purple skeleton's head. What? The purple skeleton was taken aback and hurriedly retreated. At this moment, The Fire Emperor also broke the divine chain of order and rushed towards the purple skeleton. His murderous aura was so strong that it made people's hearts palpitate. Boom! The Fire Emperor instantly rushed forward and punched the purple skeleton. The pure yang true fire was vast and mighty, instantly enveloping the purple skeleton in a sea of flames. Break! The barbarian emperor leaped high and held his blade with both hands, slashing down with all his might. The black iron blade in his hand seemed to turn into a dazzling bolt of lightning in the darkness as it fiercely bombarded the purple skeleton's head. Catcher! The sound of bones breaking rang out. Then, boom! With a bang, the purple skeleton's skull instantly shattered, and the divine fire in the skull also exploded. The area within a radius of 100,000 feet was affected. The barbarian emperor's all-out attack had finally killed the purple skeleton. Rumble! At the same time when the barbarian emperor killed the violet skeleton, the ancient palace in front of them trembled as an extremely powerful aura gushed forth from it. The three martial emperors were shocked when they sensed the aura. "You actually dared to kill my people, you deserve to die." An ancient voice rang out in everyone's hearts. Then, a skeletal hand shot out from the ancient palace and rapidly grew in size. In an instant, it had enveloped the entire void in front of the giant hand, including the three martial emperors. The Fire Emperor walked forward and struck out with his palm. An extremely powerful force spread from his hand. Boom! With a loud bang, the two huge hands collided fiercely, causing a destructive storm to sweep out in all directions. Two extremely powerful forces were clashing head-on, causing everyone to be incomparably nervous. In the next moment, the Fire Emperor's body flew up. He felt a powerful force coming from his palm, causing him to fly backwards. The blood in his body was churning. How is this possible? The barbarian emperor and the Yuan ancient heavenly emperor were indescribably shocked. They were very clear about the Fire Emperor's cultivation and battle prowess. He was a rare expert in the heaven realm. However, there was actually a powerful creature in the West Underworld Sea that had repelled the Fire Emperor. At this moment, a white figure appeared in the gate of the ancient palace and walked out. It was a white skeleton, and there was only a faint divine light in its skull. Bone scales had grown out of some parts of the skeleton's body, covering its entire body. What shocked the three martial emperors the most was that there were some parts of the skeleton that were growing flesh and blood. Was it trying to escape the fate of being a dead spirit? "Three kids, you're really tired of living." The white skeleton's voice rang out in the hearts of the three martial emperors. Kids. The Yuan ancient heavenly emperor and the others couldn't help but feel a little unhappy when they heard the white skeleton call them that. This white skeleton Juju didn't seem to care about them at all. Kill. The barbarian emperor didn't say anything more. He directly slashed at the white skeleton. The powerful saber chi fluctuations caused the surrounding temperature to drop rapidly. However, a scene that caused the Yuan ancient heavenly emperor and the others to be dumbfounded appeared. The old man actually stretched out his hand and grabbed the black saber that was slashing down. What? The barbarian emperor was truly shocked. Ever since he started cultivating, there had never been anyone who could grab his saber with their bare hands. This was something that had never happened before. Bang! The white skeleton struck out with its palm and directly sent the barbarian emperor flying. The barbarian emperor coughed up blood and the black saber was snatched away by the white skeleton. How is this possible? The Yuan ancient heavenly emperor and the Fire Emperor were indescribably shocked. They couldn't believe that the white skeleton was actually so powerful. Just a palm strike was enough to heavily injure the barbarian emperor. One must know that the barbarian emperor was a martial emperor that rose up from the 100,000 barbarian mountains. This white skeleton looked incomparably weak. The divine light in its skull seemed as though it would extinguish at any moment. However, it was still stubbornly holding on. Also, this white skeleton didn't reveal anything. But at the most crucial moment, it could change the entire situation. The white skeleton grabbed the black saber of the barbarian emperor and actually broke it into two before tossing it away. The eyes of the Yuan ancient heavenly emperor and the Fire Emperor almost popped out of their sockets. This white skeleton was much more powerful and terrifying than they had imagined. "If I want to kill all of you, It would be as easy as blowing off dust. Don't even think about escaping. That's useless. From now on, I will torture all of you before killing you. The white skeleton coldly spoke. Chimph, you want to torture us to death? Do you think that you are a paragon? Yuan ancient heavenly emperor laughed. Although this white skeleton was powerful, he wasn't someone to be trifled with. I'm not a paragon, but I'm more than enough to kill all of you. The white skeleton spoke in a serious tone. In its skull, a soul fire flickered unceasingly. Is that so? Then I will send you on your way first. As he spoke, the Yuan ancient heavenly emperor suddenly waved his hand. A scroll immediately flew out from his sleeves and opened it. A supreme immortal aura immediately erupted from the scroll. Boom! The heavens and earth trembled violently, as though the entire sky was about to shatter. 9 runes flew out from the scroll, each of them bursting with an immortal aura as they shot towards the white skeleton to seal it. This is Chapter 2648. The white skeleton in the ancient palace was too powerful and terrifying. Even a saint sovereign wasn't a match for it. Even the black saber in the barbarian emperor's hand was broken by it. The white skeleton forced the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor to use his trump card. A scroll was taken out by the ancient Yuan heavenly emperor. A supreme aura instantly appeared above the West Dark Sea, causing the entire sea to tremble. It was as though the sky was about to collapse. The white skeleton was incomparably shocked. The soul fire in its skull was rapidly pulsing. It sensed danger and rapidly retreated. 9 runes flew out from the scroll, imprinting themselves in the air. They emitted boundless divine light, dispelling the deathly chi above the West Dark Sea. The deathly aura above the West Nether Sea had existed for countless years, but on this day, everything changed. The 9 runes illuminated the dark sky, dispelling the dark clouds in the sky, allowing the light from the outside world to shine into this forbidden ground. Runes left behind by a paragon. The white skeleton was incomparably shocked. It immediately retreated back into the ancient palace. The pressure emitted by the 9 runes was simply too powerful. Bzz. The ancient palace trembled as ancient Tao runes appeared on it. A terrifying deathly chi permeated the air. What? The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor couldn't help but be shocked when he saw this. This ancient palace was actually able to resist the supreme Tao runes. It was truly unbelievable. Kill. The ancient Yuan heavenly emperor directly activated the scroll. The 9 supreme Tao runes instantly shot towards the ancient palace in the sky. Rumble. The void trembled. Every single talisman was exuding a supremely powerful aura of the immortal Tao. Every single talisman could crush the heavens and earth, terrifying to the extreme. At this moment, the supreme immortal aura actually penetrated through the ancient path and reached the human world. What's going on? Could it be that someone in the heaven realm is using the supreme Tao? In the human world, in the heaven market, around the ancient road to heaven, there were ancient saints muttering to themselves. The aura coming from the ancient road to heaven was too terrifying and powerful. Even ancient saints had the urge to kneel down and worship it. At this time, in the Ghost Emperor's touring abode in the Ghost Palace of Plentiful City, a man sitting on a throne in the hall suddenly opened his eyes, and 2 flashes of lightning seemed to flash in the dim hall. Who would have thought? The man muttered to himself, but in the next moment, he closed his eyes and stopped moving. Outside the Ghost Emperor's touring abode stood a white silhouette. This person's white robe fluttered in the wind. He was a middle-aged scholar with a slender figure and a handsome face. However, his face was a bit pale. This person was the master of the Plentiful City Ghost Palace, Plentiful City Ghost Emperor. What happened? He also sensed the fluctuation of extreme power in the human realm. In the next moment, his figure disappeared into the void. At this time, the fluctuation of extreme power directly alarmed the supreme existences in the human realm. Plentiful City Ghost Emperor's figure appeared in front of the ancient road to heaven. In the depths of the northern devil domain, the ruthless person who used his own power to intimidate the entire domain also summoned a clone and came to the heaven market. Roars came from the danger zones in the human world. Powerful divine intents rushed out from these danger zones and descended to the heaven market. These great characters wanted to know what was going on. It seems like someone is attacking that forbidden zone. Plentiful City Ghost Emperor thought of this possibility and couldn't help but be shocked to the extreme. Leveling the forbidden zone was absolutely an incomparably crazy action, but now, someone was doing it. Rumble. The entire ancient heaven ascension road was shaking. The aura of the extreme Tao was too powerful. Even a strand of it could crush the heavens. This made all the cultivators on the ancient heaven ascension road retreat far away, not daring to get close. Only Plentiful City Ghost Emperor could come close. At this time, Gu Fei also came. He had a saint artifact of extreme Tao, so he wouldn't be affected by the aura from the ancient road to heaven. Moreover, the violet gold divine sword in his body was vibrating as if it was affected by something or resonated with a certain power. The sword showed signs of flying out from his body. Could it be? Gu Fei thought of a certain possibility. When he came to the ancient road to heaven, the violet gold divine sword in his body vibrated even more intensely. It seemed like someone in the upper realm was using the power of a supreme Tao ancestor. Someone wanted to level the forbidden zone in the heavenly realm. This was truly a great move. If it succeeded, it would absolutely be the first to level a forbidden zone. One had to admit that some people in the heavenly realm were truly too crazy. Greetings, Senior. Gu Fei saw Plentiful City Ghost Emperor and quickly went forward to pay his respects. You're here too. Seeing that Gu Fei wasn't affected by the aura of the extreme Tao, Ghost Emperor couldn't help but be startled. However, he immediately realized that the other party had a saint artifact of extreme Tao that could ignore this kind of pressure. Your cultivation is about to break through to the heavenly sovereign realm. Very good. Ghost Emperor Plentiful City immediately saw through Gu Fei's cultivation and strength. Gu Fei's speed of cultivation was beyond his imagination. One should know that Gu Fei wasn't even worthy of his attention in the past. But now, Gu Fei was about to become a heavenly sovereign. Senior, what happened on the other side of the ancient road to heaven? Gu Fei asked humbly. I'm not too sure either. It seems like someone used that power. I didn't expect that person to leave behind a backup plan in the heavenly realm. Ghost Emperor Plentiful City sighed. Hearing this, Gu Fei couldn't help but wonder if the person Ghost Emperor Plentiful City mentioned was the supreme Tao ancestor that created the path of immortal Tao. Everyone in the path of immortal Tao considered themselves as the successor of the supreme Tao ancestor. This was because the path of immortal Tao was created by the supreme Tao ancestor. Today, the path of immortal Tao was incomparably prosperous. There were countless people cultivating the path of immortal Tao. Senior, why don't we go up and have a look? Gu Fei suggested. He was very curious as to who was using that power. One should know that the violet gold divine sword was with him. Could it be that the supreme Tao ancestor had refined another saint artifact of extreme Tao? All right. Ghost Emperor Plentiful City didn't think too much and nodded in agreement. Then, he stepped onto the ancient heaven ascension road first, followed by Gu Fei. Two silhouettes, one in front and one behind, quickly disappeared from the ancient heaven ascension road. What? Everyone who witnessed this scene was shocked to the extreme. Ghost Emperor Plentiful City actually went on the ancient road to heaven with Gu Fei. Am I seeing things? Chapter 2649. For the Dongfang family, Gu Fei and Ghost Emperor Fengju walking together was definitely something that couldn't be ignored. Ghost Emperor Fengju's background was too great. He was one of the strongest existences in the Tenglong continent. Even the Eastern Sky Tyrant King was wary of him. Now that Gu Fei was walking together with Ghost Emperor Fengju, the Dongfang clan felt a great pressure. At this time, Gu Fei and Ghost Emperor Fengju walked on the ancient road to heaven without any hindrance. They directly arrived at the blood-colored platform. That is, an extremely powerful divine aura descended from the sky. The western underworld sea was churning, and the endless seawater was surging, creating huge waves that reached the sky. Gu Fei raised his head and looked up. High up in the sky, there were 9 supreme runes sealing off a part of the world, fixing a pitch-black ancient palace in place. 3 experts were standing high up in the sky, staring nervously at the ancient palace that was sealed by the 9 supreme runes. Primordial Heavenly Emperor? Jiu Fei noticed that the primordial Heavenly Emperor was standing on a war chariot with a scroll in his hand. The scroll was emitting a boundless immortal light. He found it hard to believe that the primordial Heavenly Emperor was using the power of the scroll to seal the ancient palace. The ancient palace was also extraordinary. Under the suppression of the supreme immortal Dao runes, it didn't collapse and wasn't destroyed by the 9 supreme immortal Dao runes. It seemed like this ancient palace was also a supreme-grade ancient palace. This is the Heaven Realm's forbidden zone, the Western Dark Sea. Ghost Emperor Fengdu's knowledge was naturally extraordinary. He recognized this forbidden zone. In the Heaven Realm, there was only one place with a Dark Sea, and this place was the Western Dark Sea. It was unknown how this forbidden zone was formed, but since it was called a forbidden zone, it naturally wasn't a good place. There were unknown dangers lurking around. Western Dark Sea? When Jiu Fei heard this, he was shocked. He had once wandered in the Heaven Realm for a period of time. He had heard of this place before. It was a place where only death existed. At this moment, the black hall that was sealed by the 9 supreme immortal runes began to tremble. Strands of powerful death energy turned into beams of death light that broke through the underworld sea. They shot into the sky and entered the black hall. The power of the entire West Nether Sea was drawn and gathered toward the black temple in the sky. The 9 supreme immortal Dao runes that sealed Black Hall began to tremble, actually showing signs of being shaken off. Black Hall was gathering endless death energy. The white skeleton in the Black Temple wanted to use the power of the West Nether Ocean to fight against the 9 supreme immortal Dao talismans. Good heavens, on the blood-colored platform at the exit of the ancient road to heaven, Jiu Fei was shocked when he saw this scene. Humph! Even a sovereign wouldn't be able to flatten the West Nether Ocean, let alone a scroll left behind by a sovereign. A divine sense fluctuation came from the Black Temple. At this moment, the Black Temple had devoured the endless death energy. An unimaginably powerful force erupted from the Black Temple. Rumble, the 9 supreme immortal Dao talismans were forced back, causing the ancient Heavenly Emperor and the others to turn pale with fright. They were relying on this scroll, but it was almost useless now. Let's go. Let's retreat first. The ancient Heavenly Emperor sensed that something was amiss and hurriedly said to the Barbarian Emperor and Fire Emperor, "I really can't accept this." The Barbarian Emperor was extremely depressed. Even his black iron saber was broken in this battle. This was the first time he had encountered such a thing since he started cultivating. Is the Forbidden Zone really that hard to flatten? The Fire Emperor was also unwilling to retreat, but he had no choice. One should know that the cultivation of the white skeleton in the Black Temple was extremely powerful. They weren't a match for it at all. Behind the ancient Heavenly Emperor Palace, the 2 sovereigns retreated. On the other hand, the countless figures who were fighting were still fighting until the sky turned dark and the earth turned dark. Immortal soldiers and generals kept falling from the sky, and there were also many dead spirits that were cut down by the immortal soldiers and generals. Soon, the retreat horn was heard. The Celestial Theater's combat army and the Fire Emperor's combat army immediately retreated towards the West Nether Ocean. As the Celestial Theater's combat army and the Fire Emperor's combat army retreated, the monstrous dead creatures rushed towards the Celestial Theater's combat army and the Fire Emperor's combat army like a tide. Shi was originally fighting the Golden Skeleton. When he heard the retreat horn, he couldn't help but be shocked. Since the horn had sounded, he had to obey it unconditionally. Shi forced the Golden Skeleton to retreat and turned to leave. The Golden Skeleton naturally wouldn't let Shi go so easily. It held the golden sword and chased after Shi. In another direction, the Fire Emperor's first divine general was still fighting a dead spirit. The dead spirit was extremely powerful, and the Fire Emperor's divine general couldn't get rid of it for a while. Bang! At that moment, a figure rushed past the first divine general and sent the dead spirit flying. Then, with a bang, the dead spirit exploded in the void. At that moment, the first divine general finally saw who it was. He couldn't help but be surprised and delighted. It turned out that the one who killed the dead spirit was its master, the Fire Emperor. "Quick, retreat from here," said the Fire Emperor. He knew that the ancient Heavenly Emperor wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Although the scroll in the ancient Heavenly Emperor's hand was powerful, it had a time limit. If they couldn't take down the dead spirit for a long time, it would definitely be detrimental to them. As the Fire Emperor's combat army and the Celestial Theater's combat army retreated, the West Nether Ocean became much calmer. The Fire Emperor and the Barbarian Emperor rushed out of the West Nether Ocean. At that moment, the ancient Heavenly Emperor also retreated. The 9 supreme immortal Tao divine inscriptions that rushed out of the scroll began to dim, which made the ancient Heavenly Emperor extremely nervous. If anything happened to the scroll, he would be the one to suffer. "Since you're here, why are you still going out?" "Stay here," said the white skeleton in the Black Hall. Then, black chains of order rushed out of the Black Hall and entangled the ancient Heavenly Emperor. Each chain of order released the strongest fluctuations of death energy. The 9 supreme immortal Tao divine inscriptions could no longer suppress the power of the Black Hall. As long as he was entangled by the chains of order, the ancient Heavenly Emperor would most likely become the white skeleton's prisoner. On the blood-colored platform, Jiu Fei couldn't help but be shocked when he saw this scene. At that moment, another ominous thing happened on the blood-colored platform. The extremely evil bloodstains on the platform began to emit an extremely powerful aura. One after another, blood-colored figures appeared on the platform. This. Chapter 2650. At this moment, the 3 emperors were defeated. The 9 immortal runes on the scroll controlled by the primordial emperor's yarn gradually dimmed. The white skeleton was using the Death Black Temple to draw the power of death from the entire West Darksea Sea. Endless power of death was rapidly gathering towards the Black Temple. As time went by, the immortal power that erupted from the scroll was suppressed, and the power of death gradually gained the upper hand. A supreme power of death shook the heavens and the earth, causing all the powerful existences in the West Darksea Sea to feel incomparably fearful. This was the ultimate power of death. It was no wonder that no one had been able to level the forbidden area since ancient times. It seemed that this was not without reason. The Fire Emperor's soldiers and Celestial Emperor's soldiers were retreating. Endless undead chased after them. Immortal soldiers were constantly killed by the undead soldiers, falling from the sky and being devoured by the surging underworld sea below. Shi, the #1 general under the Celestial Emperor's command, roared angrily. His voice shook the battlefield. He turned around and waved the divine spear in his hand, displaying the powerful battle strength of a saint emperor. A large number of undead soldiers fell from the sky like dumplings falling into a pot. The soul fire in their skulls was forcefully dispersed. At this moment, the Fire Emperor and the Barbarian Emperor attacked. Countless undead soldiers were instantly killed by the 2 emperors. With the help of the 2 emperors, countless Celestial Emperor's soldiers and Fire Emperor's soldiers successfully broke through the siege and rushed out of the West Darksea Sea. The primordial Celestial Emperor brought up the rear. He protected himself with the scroll and fought with the white skeleton in the Death Black Temple, retreating as he fought. Even though the 9 immortal runes gradually dimmed, they still displayed unparalleled power, blocking the black chains of death that were piercing towards them from all directions. Even if the Supreme Tao Ancestor came personally, he wouldn't dare to say that he could level the West Darksea Sea. "Who do you think you are?" The white skeleton's divine sense rippled from the Death Black Temple. All the cultivators who sensed the divine sense ripple were extremely shocked. This was the source of the West Darksea Sea's confidence. It dared to challenge a supremacy. This also showed how powerful and terrifying the West Darksea Sea was. It was definitely not an easy task to level the West Darksea Sea. Rumble, the void trembled. The Death Black Palace was like a primordial demonic mountain that pressed down on the ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor, emitting a terrifying aura. The primordial Heavenly Emperor quickly retreated, using immortal Tao runes to tear open the void and escape. Just as the primordial Heavenly Emperor was forced to retreat, something ominous happened on the ancient Heaven Ascension Road. On the blood-colored platform in front of the ancient Heaven Ascension Road, Blood-colored shadows stood up one after another. Supreme martial artist's blood? When Ghost Emperor Fengju saw this scene, he couldn't help but frown. All of this was too strange. The bloodstains on the ground never disappeared, containing broken Tao laws. However, even Ghost Emperor Fengju didn't know why the blood would undergo such an evil transformation. Swoosh! A bloody shadow that was closest to Plentiful Dough pounced at Plentiful Dough without warning. A thick bloody smell immediately pervaded the scarlet platform. Ghost Emperor Fengju waved his hand, and the blood shadow immediately dissipated. However, as more and more bloody shadows appeared on the scarlet platform, things happened as Ji Yufei expected. The blood shadows were hard to erase, and even Ghost Emperor Fengju was a bit dumbfounded. "Senior, I think we should retreat," Ji Yufei said. "Preposterous." Ghost Emperor Fengju didn't say anything and directly attacked. A mass of black light spread from his body and instantly enveloped the entire scarlet platform. The blood shadows were directly erased by the power of the Ghost Dao and dissipated in the void. However, the never-disappearing bloodstains on the scarlet platform were hard to erase. Even someone as powerful as Ghost Emperor Fengju couldn't erase these bloodstains. This was the blood of a supreme martial artist, containing broken Tao laws. Even if they were broken Tao laws, they were still supreme martial artists and weren't something that Ghost Emperor Fengju could erase. Sigh. Ghost Emperor Fengju sighed and retracted the power of the Ghost Dao. The bloodstains on the crimson platform emitted a strange crimson light, and the crimson shadows reappeared in the void. "Let's go." Ghost Emperor Fengju knew that his power could temporarily suppress this demonic power, but he couldn't erase the bloodstains on the platform. As long as the bloodstains weren't erased, the blood shadows wouldn't disappear. Ominous things would still happen. In the end, Ji Yufei and Ghost Emperor Fengju left the scarlet platform, walked into the ancient path to heaven, and returned along the original path. Boom! After Ji Yufei and Ghost Emperor Fengju left, a loud explosion resounded in the dark sky. The ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor was directly sent flying out of the Western Dark Sea by the Death Black Palace. The chariot under his feet exploded, and the 9 immortal Tao runes completely dissipated. His entire body became faint as if it could disappear at any time. This was only one of the countless clones of the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor, not his real body. Even if it disappeared, it wouldn't affect the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor at all. At this time, the Celestial Emperor's combat weapon and the Fire Emperor's combat weapon rushed out of the Western Dark Sea. The white skeleton controlled the Death Black Palace and directly killed its way out of the Western Dark Sea. Countless black chains of death rushed out of the Death Black Palace and pierced the immortal soldiers and generals. What? Everyone was extremely shocked. The dead spirits of the Western Dark Sea actually dared to leave the Western Dark Sea. This was beyond everyone's expectations. Roar. "I don't want to die. I'm unwilling." Screams and cries resounded everywhere. The black chains of death instantly pierced the bodies of countless immortal soldiers and generals. In an instant, the bodies of the immortal soldiers and generals that were pierced by the black chains of death withered rapidly. Their essence, chi, and spirit were completely devoured by the black chains of death, turning them into horrifying dried corpses. At this time, the barbarian emperor directly broke the void and instantly escaped. He didn't care about the life and death of the Fire Emperor and the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor. "Damn it!" The Fire Emperor roared angrily. He waved his big sleeve and directly stored the remaining Fire Emperor's combat weapon into his big sleeve, and then directly escaped. At this time, the saints who were watching the battle outside the Western Dark Sea also began to retreat. Di Zun, Shiqi shouted at the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor. He hoped that the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor would save them. At this time, the white skeleton once again attacked. The black chains of death once again pierced the bodies of countless Celestial Emperor's combat weapons, dragging them to the black chains of death. Their essence was completely devoured, turning them into dried corpses. Roar. Shiqi's eyes turned red when he saw this scene. However, given his cultivation base, he couldn't change anything. Rumble. Chapter 2651. The clone of the ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor was going all out. He actually ignited the last of his immortal Tao source energy and charged towards the Death Black Palace. At the same time, the clone threw out the scroll. The scroll unfurled and emitted a hazy divine light that sucked in the remaining Celestial Emperor armaments. Take the scroll back to Celestial City. The voice of the ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor rang out in Shichi's mind. Yes. Shichi accepted the order and grabbed the scroll that was descending from the sky. Then, he crushed a jade talisman and instantly disappeared into the void without a trace. You overestimate yourself. The white skeleton's consciousness rippled out from the Death Black Palace. Boom. The incarnation of the Yuan ancient celestial the Arch exploded and turned into a ball of immortal divine fire. It enveloped the entire Death Black Hall and displayed its terrifying might. One after another, the black chains of death shattered. The Black Palace of Death was shaking, and countless runes of death dissipated in the immortal flames. The clone of the ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor had been sacrificed just like that. However, it couldn't harm the white skeleton in the Death Black Palace and prevented it from chasing after Shichi. Roar. The Death Black Palace shook as the white skeleton roared at the sky. The true powerhouse hadn't arrived. Only a clone had been destroyed. This result was hard to accept. At this time, all the saints who were watching the battle from the periphery of the West Dark Sea had already fled. Even if the white skeleton wanted to find someone to vent its anger on, there was no one to do so for it. In the end, the white skeleton could only retreat back into the West Dark Sea. The Forbidden Land was difficult to conquer. The ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor's plan to conquer the Forbidden Land had failed. He had suffered heavy losses and even sacrificed one of his clones. The battle had shaken the entire region. Everyone had witnessed the power of the West Dark Sea. The creatures in the Forbidden Land were indeed powerful and terrifying. However, if the Forbidden Land couldn't be conquered, then the passage between the mortal realm and the celestial realm couldn't be opened. At this time, the ancient Yuan Celestial Emperor's top general, Shichi, was hurrying through the mountains with the scroll in his hand. He wanted to rush to the nearest city and use the transportation array there to leave the West Dark Sea. However, what he didn't know was that a figure was silently chasing after him. Very soon, the mysterious figure blocked Shichi's path in a mountain forest, blocking his way. Hand over the scroll. The mysterious man looked at Shichi and said calmly. His entire body was covered in black clothes, and his face was covered with a black cloth, revealing only his eyes. Who are you? Do you know who you are talking to? Shichi stared at the mysterious man in front of him and said coldly. TCH, I only know that if you don't hand over that scroll now, you will die. The black-robed man coldly spoke. His eyes flickered as a cold killing intent gushed forth from him, causing people's hearts to palpitate. He wanted to kill Shichi. Haha, is that so? Shichi smiled. Suddenly, he raised the spear in his hand and stabbed it towards the black-clothed man without any warning. The tip of the spear seemed to have turned into a silver star, emitting a resplendent brilliance. However, Shichi couldn't laugh. The black-clothed man stretched out his hand and grabbed the spear. Then, with a shake of his hand, he sent Shichi flying. Then, the black-clothed man smashed the spear that he had snatched from Shichi and nailed him in the air. You refuse a toast only to drink a forfeit. The black-clothed man stepped forward and searched Shichi's body. Shichi was already half dead, and his life was in the hands of the black-clothed man. Very quickly, everything on Shichi's body was found by the black-clothed man. He didn't have anything on him, which surprised the black-clothed man. Where's the scroll? The black-clothed man interrogated Shichi again. However, Shichi was very unyielding and didn't say a word. No matter how the black-clothed man tortured him, he wouldn't say a word. Shichi knew very well that as long as he didn't say a word, he would be able to live. If he did, he would be worthless and the other party might even kill him. Very well, then die. The black-clothed man was getting impatient. He directly pointed his finger and destroyed Shichi's Niwan palace, scattering his soul. Shichi instantly breathed his last. At the moment when Shichi was killed by the black-clothed man, a pitch-black vortex suddenly appeared in the air. Then, with a boom, the void shattered. Looking into the black vortex, One could see a part of the world being destroyed and turning back into primal chaos. The terrifying destructive power was truly frightening. This was the collapse of Shichi's inner world. After Shichi was killed by the black-clothed man, his inner world lost its support and would turn back into primal chaos in a short period of time. The black-clothed man directly rushed into the black vortex and entered Shichi's inner world that was heading towards destruction. Then, he unleashed a great technique. Stalks of spiritual herbs flew over from all directions and landed in the black-clothed man's hands. In this inner world, there was a palace built on top of a huge mountain. Without hesitation, the black-clothed man rushed over and moved the palace into his inner world. The ground was collapsing and cracks in space that were difficult to repair appeared in the sky. The black-clothed man found many good things in this inner world that was about to be destroyed. It was time to leave. He directly rushed out of this inner world and returned to reality. Just as he returned to reality, Shichi's inner world finally completely collapsed and a scroll flew out from the primal chaos. Shichi had no idea where this scroll was kept. This was the only way for the black-clothed man to have a chance of obtaining this scroll. A rune left behind by the Tao ancestor. The black-clothed man opened the scroll and saw that it was hazy. Inside it was a hazy world with countless celestial emperor's combat soldiers moving about. The man in black smiled, and then he put the scroll away. He soared into the sky and disappeared in an instant. Just as Shichi was killed, in the sky above the celestial city in the eastern domain, within the celestial palace, a pa sound rang out from a secret room where a soul tablet was enshrined. A jade token suddenly exploded without any warning, emitting a crisp sound. What? Shichi is dead. An old man in the secret room was extremely shocked. He could not believe that Shichi was actually dead because his soul tablet had been shattered. Chapter 2652. Shichi was the most capable assistant of the ancient celestial the Arch. He had once led the celestial Theacher's army to conquer a huge territory for the ancient celestial the Arch. The death of this god of death had infuriated the ancient celestial the Arch. He had issued an immortal order to avenge Shichi, but no one knew who had killed him. The ancient celestial the Arch had suffered heavy losses in this battle. Not only had he lost an avatar, but Shichi had also died. Not a single one of the 100,000 celestial the Arch army had survived. The ancient celestial the Arch was so angry that he nearly vomited blood when he heard the news. A furious roar came from the celestial the Arch palace, shaking the entire place. Countless immortal soldiers were trembling in fear. The ancient celestial the Arch was furious. On this day, countless immortal generals were sent out by the ancient celestial the Arch. The ancient celestial the Arch wanted to know who had attacked him from behind. He had learned from other sources that Shichi had successfully escaped the West Dark Sea. It was obvious that someone had killed him on his way back. Even the Supreme Scroll had been stolen by that person. The Supreme Scroll was one of the few trump cards the ancient celestial the Arch had. If it hadn't been for the importance of this battle, he definitely wouldn't have used it. Just as the ancient celestial the Arch was about to go crazy, someone was very happy. A black-robed man appeared on top of a mountain in the outer region of the West Dark Sea. The West Dark Sea had already returned to its former tranquility, and no one dared to casually step into this place. However, this mysterious black-robed man simply ignored the threat of the West Dark Sea and directly went to the outer region. Ancient celestial the Arch is probably vomiting blood now. The man muttered to himself with a mischievous smile on his face. This person was Old Tortoise. He was the ancestor of sneak attacks. Even when Shichi died, he didn't know who killed him. Shichi was really unlucky to have met the Old Tortoise. That's the ancient road to heaven. The Old Tortoise used a secret art to look into the depths of the West Dark Sea. He saw an ancient road extending out of the void, and there was a blood-colored platform at the exit. Who made this prank? They actually opened the exit of the ancient road to heaven here. The old turtle was speechless. The West Nether Sea was a forbidden zone, and those fellows there weren't easy to provoke. The fate of the ancient celestial the Arch was the best proof of that. If he wanted to descend to the lower realms, he would first have to pass through the western underworld ocean. However, It was practically impossible to pass through this trial. The old tortoise didn't believe that anyone in the present age could do something that not even a supreme being could do. Flattening the forbidden area was just an unrealistic idea. Hey, you inside, listen up. Your grandpa turtle is here. Hurry up and come out to welcome me. Old Tortoise suddenly shouted at the western underworld sea. Is this guy crazy? At this time, some saints were wandering around the western underworld sea. When they heard the old turtle's roar, they were so scared that they almost turned around and fled. The dead spirits in the western underworld sea were not to be trifled with. Even the three emperors weren't a match for those undead spirit. However, there was no response from the western netherworld sea. It was completely silent, and there was not a single ripple in the lifeless netherworld sea. The surface of the sea was as calm as a mirror. What's going on? Old Tortoise was a little disappointed. He thought that those guys in the western underworld sea would jump out once he roared, but the result was beyond his expectations. Trash of the western underworld sea, your grandpa turtle is here to challenge you. Hurry up and come out to accept your death. Old Tortoise roared again, and his voice spread far and wide. This guy is really crazy. At this time, the saints who were wandering around hurriedly retreated far away and didn't dare to appear near the western underworld sea. No one knew if the terrifying existence in the western underworld sea would come out to kill them. You're all turtles who hide in your shells. Old Tortoise roared. He seemed to have forgotten that he was also a turtle. However, no matter how much Old Tortoise scolded and roared, the dead spirits in the western underworld sea refused to come out. The western underworld sea was strangely quiet. H, you're not coming out, huh? Then don't blame me for being rude. Old Tortoise said with a smirk. Then, he flipped his right hand, and a large seal immediately appeared in his hand. It was a simple and unadorned seal with chaotic chi lingering on it. Then, the ancient seal shot up from Old Tortoise's hand and smashed towards the western underworld sea. By the time the ancient seal soared into the sky, it had already become as big as a mountain, blocking out the entire sky. Strands of chaotic energy descended from the huge seal, like huge chaotic dragons. An unimaginably powerful wave of energy came down from the seal, and the void below the seal constantly cracked into pitch-black spatial cracks. Rumble, an ancient seal directly smashed down from the sky, causing the entire western underworld sea to tremble. At this time, monstrous waves were set off on the calm surface of the sea. Countless white bones that had sunk to the bottom of the sea rolled up, and a wave of death energy was rapidly recovering. A black palace broke through the seawater and rushed out from the bottom of the sea. The Black Palace of Death had appeared, and in the main hall of the Black Palace sat a white skeleton. What? When the white skeletons in the Black Temple sensed the mighty aura of the seal in the sky, they were extremely shocked. The Tai Huang seal, how is this possible? The weak soul fire in the skull of the white skeleton pulsed violently, as if it would extinguish at any time. 4 dead spirits, the soul fire was the source of their lives. Once the soul fire was extinguished, the dead spirit's soul would also dissipate. HMPH, are you willing to come out now? Old Tortoise sneered when he saw this scene from a mountain on the outskirts of the western underworld sea. Rumble, under the control of Old Tortoise, a large seal descended from the sky and directly pressed down on the Black Palace below. A supreme aura spread out from the seal. Before the seal actually hit the Black Palace shook violently, and hideous cracks appeared on its surface as if it would collapse at any time. The white skeleton in the Black Palace was extremely shocked and did not know what to do for a moment. The Tai Huang seal was different from the Supreme Scroll used by the primordial Heavenly Emperor. The Supreme Scroll was just a scroll, and a Supreme Being had left 9 Supreme Tao patterns on it. However, the Tai Huang seal was different. It was a supreme demon weapon refined by the Supreme Tai Huang of the demon race. There was no comparison between the two. Boom! At this moment, the seal directly smashed down and smashed into the Black Palace. With a loud bang, the Black Palace exploded. It was directly destroyed by the Tai Sovereign seal. Even the soul fire of the skeleton in the Black Palace was extinguished. It was dead. This was the power of the Tai Huang seal, which could unleash a supreme attack. Although the white skeleton was powerful, It could not compete with the Tai Huang seal. The white skeleton that had previously defeated 3 martial emperors with its own strength was now smashed to death by the Tai Huang seal. The sages roaming around the periphery of the West Dark Sea Ocean were shocked by the scene in front of them. Their eyeballs almost fell to the ground. All of this was too unbelievable. It had to be known that the white skeleton had just displayed its divine might and forced the ancient Yuan Heavenly Emperor and the other 2 emperors to flee. However, the truth was right in front of them, and the sages had no choice but to believe it. Isn't that the Tai Huang seal? The demon lord is here. Someone recognized the Tai Huang seal and exclaimed. Rumble. The West Dark Sea Ocean shook violently and a powerful death energy gathered quickly. After the Tai Huang seal smashed the Black Palace, another Black Palace rushed out from the depths of the ocean. Boom! With a loud bang, another Black Palace broke through the water and soared into the sky. A terrifying aura of death immediately spread out from the Black Palace. This black hole was smaller than the previous black hole, but the energy ripples it gave off were much more powerful than the previous black hole. The old tortoise was shocked when he saw this. At this moment, the dead spirits in the Black Palace made their move. Black chains rushed out from the Black Palace and entangled the mountain-like Tai Huang seal. Swoosh! At this moment, the Tai Huang seal suddenly emitted a dazzling demonic light. Then, the mountain-like Tai Huang seal disappeared and a figure appeared in the void. The figure was burly. He stood there as if all the Taos in the world were about to be trampled under his feet. He had an aura of looking down on the 3 realms and 6 Taos. The figure was extremely familiar to the old tortoise. This was the god of the Tai Huang seal. He looked exactly like his father, the Tai Huang, as if the Tai Huang had appeared in the world. The god's attack was extraordinary. The Black Palace was directly smashed by the god's punch. The dead spirits inside could not escape and were directly smashed into pieces. While the old tortoise was fighting in the Forbidden Land, Ji Yufei came to the Jiang clan of the Desolate in the human realm. He was here to pay a visit to Jiang Renhuang. Ji Yufei's arrival shocked the upper echelons of the Jiang clan of the Desolate. The current clan leader of the Jiang clan of the Desolate personally came out to welcome Ji Yufei and brought him into the Jiang clan of the Desolate. He planned to ask Jiang Renhuang to destroy the Forbidden Land in the Heaven Realm and open the path to heavenly mortality. Ji Yufei met Jiang Renhuang in a valley in the Jiang clan of the Jiang clan. At this time, Jiang Renhuang had already recovered from his injuries. When Ji Yufei stated his intention, Jiang Renhuang rejected his request. The reason was simple: it was not the right time. The appearance of the ancient road to heavenly mortality was just a joke played by someone. One should know that even a supreme being might not be able to destroy the Forbidden Land in the Heaven Realm. Chapter 2653. Ji Yufei went to the ancestral land of the Jiang clan to visit Renhuang Jiang. He wanted to ask the Renhuang to clear out the Forbidden Land and open up the path to the heavenly mortal realm. However, Renhuang Jiang did not want to make a move because it was not the right time yet. Although Ji Yufei was a little disappointed, he still took the opportunity to ask the Renhuang for advice on cultivation. His cultivation had long reached a bottleneck. He felt that he could take the next step, but the reality was that he was still lacking something. Jiang Renhuang was a senior expert, and his understanding of cultivation made Ji Yufei feel as if he had seen the blue sky through the clouds. All the doubts and puzzles he had in the past regarding cultivation were answered by Renhuang's mouth. Ji Yufei decided to stay in the Jiang clan of the Ancients so that he could ask Renhuang Jiang for advice. He had unintentionally helped Renhuang Jiang before, so the Renhuang naturally saw him in a different light. He also wanted to help Ji Yufei and help Ji Yufei increase his cultivation. Because of this, the other descendants of the Jiang clan were envious of Ji Yufei. One should know that the descendants of the Jiang clan dreamed of being personally taught by the Renhuang. However, even the most outstanding genius of the Jiang clan could not receive the Renhuang's guidance. While Ji Yufei was staying in the Jiang clan of the Ancients, the old turtle was showing off his power in the West Underworld Sea in the Heaven Realm. He directly took out the Tai Huang seal. The Tai Huang seal turned into a middle-aged man who was fighting against the dead spirits in the West Underworld Sea. He continuously killed the powerful dead spirits that were hiding in the sea. Phut, I thought the West Underworld Sea was something special. It seems like I, the old turtle, will be able to flatten this West Underworld Sea. The old turtle stood on top of the mountain and said arrogantly. He thought that he was the one fighting, but the truth was that he only took out the Tai Huang seal. It was the god inside the seal that was fighting in the West Underworld Sea. The Tai Huang seal was a demonic weapon of the extreme Tao. It contained the awakening of a god. It was equivalent to the descent of a supreme being and could indeed destroy a forbidden land. At this moment, the holograde creatures that were hiding in the distance gathered from all directions. They were extremely shocked at the sight of this. In the West Nether Sea, the silhouette displayed invincible might. The black halls of death that rushed out from the depths of the Nether Sea kept exploding. There were no dead souls that could stop that silhouette. The Tai Sovereign Seal is indeed powerful. No wonder it's the #1 demon weapon in the history of the demon race. Someone exclaimed. This time, we might really be able to flatten the Western Netherworld Ocean. Some people were incomparably excited, because once they flattened the Western Underworld Sea, there would be no more obstructions on the Heaven Realm's path, and the experts of the Heaven Realm could descend to the lower realms. Of course, experts from the lower realms could also ascend to the heavens. Rumble, just when everyone thought that old tortoise would succeed, the entire West Nether Sea suddenly shook. A gigantic black temple of death rose from the depths of the West Nether Sea. A powerful aura of death spread out from the Underworld Palace. An extremely powerful and terrifying figure was sitting in the Underworld Palace. Tai Huang Seal. A divine will rippled out from the figure, and a voice rang out in everyone's hearts. I've met my match. When old tortoise sensed the aura coming from the Underworld Palace, he immediately put away his frivolous expression and became solemn. At that moment, the middle-aged man formed by the deity of the Tai Huang Seal made a forceful move. He stretched out his hand and crushed the entire world, wanting to smash the Underworld Palace into pieces. Boom! A huge pitch-black hand rushed out from the Underworld Palace and directly met the attack. Two extremely powerful forces collided in an instant, and a large area of the void suddenly collapsed and collapsed. Even half of the Nether Sea's seawater was evaporated. This time, the deity of the Tai Huang Seal could not gain any advantage. This old tortoise was secretly shocked when he saw this scene. One should know that the deity of the Tai Huang Seal was equivalent to an extension of his father's life. To a certain extent, the deity of the Tai Huang Seal was a supreme being. However, the being in the Underworld Palace was also incredible. He was probably a different kind of supreme being. Otherwise, how could he have withstood a blow from the deity of the Tai Huang Seal? Let's fight. Unleash your power and defeat this guy for me. Old Tortoise transmitted his voice to the deity of the Tai Huang Seal. He was very confident in the deity of the Tai Huang Seal. After all, it was a demonic weapon of the Tai Huang Seal that was personally refined by his father. Rumble, in response, the deity of the Tai Huang Seal immediately released an incredibly powerful wave of energy. The terrifying aura dispersed the deathly aura that shrouded the sky above the West Nether Sea. The demonic weapon of the Tai Huang Seal isn't invincible. The divine will of the Tai Huang Seal spread out from the Underworld Palace. However, the deity of the Tai Huang Seal did not say anything. He directly turned into a huge seal and suppressed the Underworld Palace, displaying the power of a supreme being. The aura of a supreme being appeared between heaven and earth and spread out from the West Nether Sea. All the saint-level beings were terrified and had the urge to kneel down. At that moment, the aura of the Tai Huang Seal passed through the ancient road to heaven and reached the human world. The moment the aura of a supreme being appeared, the entire sky market immediately quieted down. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. Some cultivators with weaker cultivations directly fell to the ground, unable to bear the pressure. What's happening in the heaven realm? Is someone attacking the forbidden area again? Everyone was guessing. This time, even the Eastern Sky Tyrant King was alarmed and personally came to check. However, she did not step onto the ancient road to heaven and only watched from afar. The Iron Blood Daoist and the Red Dragon also came. Now, all the experts in the human world had their eyes on the ancient road to heaven, especially the old antiques. Ever since the destruction of the great desolate world, the laws of the heaven and earth became incomplete and flawed. In order to comprehend the perfect laws of the heaven and earth, one could only go to the upper world. However, now that the path to heavenly mortality was blocked, the old antiques in the human world were extremely anxious. Since the situation had changed, everyone was thinking of ways to increase their cultivation. One should know that the higher one's cultivation was, the higher the chance of surviving the great calamity. Someone in the upper world actually used an extreme divine weapon. The eastern sky tyrant king stood high up in the sky. The human sovereign's sword in her hand was constantly shaking, as if it could break free at any time and soar into the sky. At this time, Ghost Emperor Fengju came again. In the West Nether Sea in the Heaven Realm, the deity of the Tai Huang seal and the unimaginable existence in the Underworld Palace were fighting ceaselessly. Everywhere they went, everything was mercilessly destroyed. A dead spirit cultivated from the bones of a supreme being? The old turtle saw many things at this time. It was a skeleton surrounded by chaotic qi. It was extremely powerful and kept colliding with the Tai Huang seal. Chapter 2654. How is this possible? The old tortoise could not believe his eyes when he saw the Grand Sovereign seal fighting against the chaotic skeleton. The chaotic skeleton was extraordinary. Soon, the old tortoise realized that the chaotic skeleton was the skeleton of a supreme being. The supreme being's skeleton was sentient and then turned into a dead spirit. This kind of creature had the skeleton of a supreme being, which was invincible and could compete with a supreme saint weapon. This chaotic skeleton should be the last trump card of the West Dark Sea Ocean. No one would have thought that the trump card of the West Dark Sea Ocean was an unimaginably powerful dead spirit. The skeletal body of a supreme being made this dead spirit unimaginably powerful. Boom! The chaos skeleton directly punched upwards and smashed the Tai Sovereign seal that was pressing down from the sky. Unexpectedly, the Tai Sovereign seal was blocked. The Grand Sovereign seal flew up and turned into a middle-aged man. He displayed a supreme divine skill and fought against the chaotic skeleton. It was an extremely fierce battle. The aura of the supreme demon soldier spread out from the West Dark Sea Ocean. All the creatures in the western region of the Heaven Realm felt this aura and were terrified. No one would have thought that there was a terrifying dead spirit hiding in the West Dark Sea Ocean that could compete with the supreme demon soldier. It was unimaginably powerful. Everyone who saw this was stunned. Even the old tortoise looked at the West Dark Sea Ocean in disbelief and was speechless for a long time. It was only the old tortoise's wishful thinking to flatten the West Dark Sea Ocean. It was many times more difficult than he had imagined. Fortunately, the ancient heavenly emperor and the other two emperors did not disturb the chaotic skeleton when they were fighting in the West Dark Sea Ocean. Otherwise, none of the three emperors would have been able to escape. Some sages under the command of the ancient heavenly emperor and the fire emperor could not help but feel lucky. I, the old tortoise, will not do such a strenuous and unrewarding thing. I'm leaving. The old tortoise transmitted his voice to the deity in the Grand Sovereign seal. Boom! He punched with the Tai Huang seal and the whole world exploded. The chaotic skeleton was thrown into the chaos. Then, he turned around and took a step forward. In an instant, he arrived at the mountain where Old Turtle was. He grabbed Old Turtle and left. Just as the Grand Sovereign Seal's gods will disappeared into the sky, the chaotic skeleton broke through the void and rushed out of the chaos. Roar! The chaos skeleton roared furiously towards the sky. The entire western netherworld sea shook, and everyone's heart palpitated. The combat strength displayed by this dead spirit was too strong. The chaos skeleton was furious for a while before it rushed into the underworld palace in the sky. Then, the underworld palace descended from the sky and sank into the netherworld sea below. A great battle ended just like that. It ended so suddenly. Although Old Tortoise did not really conquer the forbidden area of the West Nether Sea, he had successfully forced out the West Nether Sea's trump card, the chaotic skeleton. It seemed that no one would dare to attack the Western Netherworld Sea in the near future. The war in the heavenly realm had come to an end. However, no one would give up. Conquering the forbidden area was everyone's dream. They could also use this opportunity to open up the path to heavenly mortality. Time flew by. Ji Yufei stayed in the Zhao clan of the ancients for half a year. During this time, he often discussed Tao with Jiang Renhuang. Under Jiang Renhuang's guidance, although he did not make a breakthrough in his cultivation, his control of power had been perfected. Ji Yufei's foundation was very solid. Under Jiang Renhuang's guidance, he already had the qualifications to break through to the Holy Sovereign Realm. Moreover, this was exactly what he wanted to do. Of course, he could not undergo the tribulation in the Zhao clan of the ancients. In the end, Ji Yufei bid farewell to Jiang Renhuang and left the Jiang clan of the ancients. He returned to Wanxiang city to prepare for the tribulation. The Holy Sovereign Tribulation was not ordinary. To be safe, Ji Yufei immediately awakened the god inside the cauldron of mountain and river. The cauldron disappeared and an old man appeared. "Father, are you finally going to undergo the tribulation?" Ji Yuling appeared out of nowhere and suddenly appeared beside Ji Yufei. "Yes." Ji Yufei nodded, but he did not say anything else. "Where do you plan to undergo the tribulation?" Yang Er asked. "I can't attack the Dongfang clan. Otherwise, I can directly go to the Dongfang clan's ancestral grounds to undergo the tribulation." "That would be so cool." Ji Yufei's face suddenly revealed a smirk. This method was definitely feasible. However, Ji Yufei had to give Ghost Emperor Fengju some face and did not start a war with the Dongfang clan. "I didn't expect father to be so evil, hey." Ji Yuling's eyes brightened when she heard Ji Yufei's words. She never thought that her normally serious father would also play tricks on others. "All right, I need to think about it seriously. Don't disturb me," Ji Yufei said to Ji Yuling. At this time, knowing that Ji Yufei had returned, the Iron-Blood Daoist and the Red Dragon also returned from outside. They directly entered the City Lord's mansion to greet Ji Yufei. "Have you found Li Lingfeng?" Ji Yufei glanced at the Red Dragon and the Iron-Blood Daoist who were standing in front of the throne and asked. Half a year had passed, but he had been focusing on his cultivation, thus he did not receive any news. The Red Dragon and the Iron-Blood Daoist immediately shook their heads. Although they had tried their best to investigate, they still could not find any trace of Li Lingfeng. After all, their manpower was limited. "What about Zi Yang and the Undying Demon Child?" Ji Yufei continued to ask. The Red Dragon and the Iron-Blood Daoist still shook their heads, causing Ji Yufei to feel uneasy. Could it be that those people had completely disappeared? The truth was, the news that Ji Yufei had slain Supremacy South Heaven had already spread across the cultivation world of the human realm. If Zi Yang and the Undying Demon Child heard the news, they would definitely come here immediately. What exactly happened? Ji Yufei was confused. Sacred venerables like the Undying Demon Child and Emperor Xian Yang shouldn't be hiding all the time. "All right, you guys are dismissed," Ji Yufei said with a sigh. "Yes." The Red Dragon and the Iron-Blood Daoist quickly responded and left the hall. Only Ji Yufei's family was left in the hall of the City Lord's mansion. Ji Yufei pondered for a moment and took out an ancient cauldron. It was the mountain and river cauldron. He had used a secret art to awaken the deity inside the cauldron. Soon, an old man crawled out from the mountain and river cauldron. "Huh!" When the disheveled old man saw Ji Yufei, he was obviously shocked. "I didn't expect your cultivation to have reached such a level," the old man continued. He could tell Ji Yufei's cultivation with a single glance, and he could vaguely guess why Ji Yufei had awakened him. "I need your help." Ji Yufei was very straightforward. He immediately stated his goal. "Can I not help?" The old man looked at Ji Yufei and said, "What do you think?" Chapter 2655. Ji Yufei had received guidance from Ren Huang. His cultivation had reached the Great Sage Great Perfection realm. He was qualified to break through to the Holy Venerate realm. Is this the deity in the mountain and river cauldron? Why is it a wretched old man? When Ji Yufei summoned the mountain and river cauldron's soul, Ji Yuling's crisp voice resounded in the main hall of the City Lord's mansion. Ji Ling stared curiously at the little old man who was sitting cross-legged above the mountain and river cauldron. It was her first time seeing the deity in the extreme divine tool. "What are you talking about, little girl? Be careful that I don't spank you." The deity in the mountain and river cauldron immediately rolled his eyes at Ji Ling when he heard Ji Ling calling him a little old man, a wretched old man at that. "You're a wretched old man," Ji Ling said seriously. "Whose family is this girl? She's really pissing me off." The little old man said angrily. "Mother, this little old man is so fun." Ji Ling couldn't help but clap and laugh when she saw the deity in the mountain and river cauldron getting angry. "This little girl can't be." The little old man looked at Ji Ling and Yang before turning to look at Ji Fei. "He, she's my precious daughter, the girl of my Ji family." Ji Fei was amused when he saw this. "Damn, so she's your daughter. No wonder she's so wild. She's really an ignorant wild girl." The little old man came to a sudden realization. "Hey, what are you talking about? I'm not a wild girl." It was Ji Ling's turn to be unhappy when she heard the little old man calling her a wild girl. Although she was lively and active, she was definitely not a wild girl. "But I'm not a wretched old man either," the little old man said to Ji Ling, pretending to be serious. All right, stop fooling around. Ling don't be rude to your senior. Senior, you're already so old, yet you still stoop to the level of a little girl." At this moment, Ji Fei spoke. Ji Fei brat is right. I am a senior expert, so I won't lower myself to the same level as a little girl like you." The little old man straightened his clothes, raised his head, and puffed out his chest. He pretended to be serious, looking like an otherworldly expert as he looked at Gulling. This time, Ji Ling did not say anything. "Let's get down to business," Ji Fei said to the old man. "I know what you want to say. Don't you want to undergo tribulation? That's easy. The power of heaven's wrath in the human realm has already disappeared. You can undergo tribulation in the human realm," the little old man said. "It's a good choice to undergo the tribulation in the human world. However, ever since the primordial world was destroyed, the laws of heaven and earth in the human world have become incomplete." This, Ji Fei wanted to say something but hesitated. "Hey, you brat, your ambition is really higher than the sky. You actually want to." The little old man was a little surprised. The meaning behind Ji Fei's words was that he didn't want to undergo tribulation in the human realm. He wanted to become a supreme expert, and because the laws of heaven and earth in the human realm weren't perfect, supreme experts wouldn't be born. "That's right. I hope you can fulfill my wish." Ji Fei stared at the little old man and said in an extremely serious manner. This, the little old man pondered. "Mother, father, what are they talking about?" Ji Ling asked Yang "Yes." Yang thought for a moment and said, "I know a little about your father's thoughts. He doesn't want to undergo tribulation in the human realm. He wants to pave the way to become a supreme expert in the future." "What, supreme expert?" Father, Ji Ling couldn't help but be extremely shocked when she heard this. Father's ambition is really higher than the sky. Father actually wants to become an invincible supreme expert in the 3 realms and 6 Daos. If father can become a supreme expert, then I'll be the daughter of the supreme expert. Who in the 3 realms and 6 Daos would dare to bully me? Ji Ling couldn't help but feel extremely excited when she thought of this. Just as Ji Ling's thoughts were running wild, the little old man frowned. "In the end," he sighed. "Although your request isn't easy, it's not impossible. If you can invite the human sovereign here, then there's hope." The little old man said. "Invite the human sovereign." Ji Fei was very surprised when he heard this. One should know that he had just returned from the Jiang clan and now he was going to visit them again. "That's right. Only the human sovereign of the Jiang clan and I can send you to the heaven realm." The little old man put away his playful expression and looked at Ji Fei seriously. This was a big matter and he knew the importance of it. He was also very curious and wanted to see how far Ji Fei could go. "Father, are you going to the heaven realm? Can you bring me along?" When Ji Ling heard that Ji Fei wanted to go to the heaven realm, She immediately jumped out from behind Yang Er. The heaven realm was the cradle of experts. All the cultivators in the human realm dreamed of going to the heaven realm. Don't mess around. Your father is not going to the heaven realm to play. Yang Er pulled Ji Yu Ling to her side. Oh. Ji Yu Ling was a little disappointed. Little girl, do you want to go to the heaven realm? The cauldron soul of the mountain and river cauldron suddenly turned around and said to Ji Yu Ling with a smile like an evil little old man. So what if I want to? Ji Yu Ling said to the little old man. Ha, beg me. If you beg me, I will reluctantly send you to the heaven realm. The little old man said with a smile. I'm not begging you. Ji Yu Ling stuck out her tongue at the little old man and made a face. All right, I'll go ask the human sovereign. Ji Yu Fei acted on his thoughts. Since the little old man wanted him to ask the Ren Huang for help, he would do it. Although the Ren Huang was unwilling to take action to flatten the Forbidden Zone, he was asking the Ren Huang for help because of his own matters. With his relationship with the human sovereign would definitely help him. Ji Yu Fei did not keep the mountain and river cauldron. One should know that the cauldron soul of the mountain and river cauldron had been awakened. In this world, there was absolutely no one who could take the mountain and river cauldron away. Ji Yu Ling and the little old man got into a heated argument. The two of them bickered incessantly, but Yang Er could only frown as she watched. Ji Yu Fei directly used the teleportation portal in the city lord's estate to leave the Eastern Realm. Very quickly, he once again arrived at the Jiang clan of the Desolation's ancestral ground. That person is here again. Two people walked out from the entrance of the Jiang clan of the Desolation's ancestral ground. When they saw Ji Yu Fei, they were a little surprised, because Ji Yu Fei had returned so quickly after leaving not too long ago. The two approached Ji Yu Fei. Greetings, senior. The two hurriedly paid their respects to Ji Yu Fei. One should know that Ji Yu Fei was the human sovereign's esteemed guest, thus they did not dare to slight him. I have something to discuss with the human sovereign. Please help me pass on the message. Ji Yu Fei straightforwardly stated the purpose of his visit. The two Jiang clan's disciples exchanged glances and could not help but hesitate. One should know that even they could not meet the human sovereign, how could they pass on the message? Is there a problem? Ji Yu Fei asked after seeing the troubled look on the two's faces. No, we will pass on the message right away. The two Jiang clan's disciples hurriedly replied. Then, one of them turned around and ran into the ancestral ground. Soon enough, the current clan leader of the Jiang clan of the Desolation came out from the ancestral ground to welcome Ji Yu Fei and bring him into the ancestral ground. The fact that the clan leader of the Jiang clan personally came out to welcome Ji Yu Fei showed how much importance the Jiang clan placed on him. In fact, with Ji Yu Fei's identity, it was not a big deal for the clan leader of the Jiang clan to personally welcome him. Ji Yu Fei had the right to do so. The cultivation place of the human sovereign was not a place that anyone could enter. Of course, the clan leader of the Jiang clan was one of them. Under the guidance of the clan leader, Ji Yu Fei once again arrived at the cultivation place of the human sovereign. The human sovereign was a little surprised by Ji Yu Fei's return. When Ji Yu Fei explained the purpose of his visit, Jiang Renhuang was extremely shocked. This descendant of the martial ancestor was indeed extraordinary. He was paving the way to become an omnipotent expert. The laws of heaven and earth in the human realm were not complete, so it was impossible for an omnipotent expert to be born. In the current world, the only places that could give birth to omnipotent experts were the heaven realm or the chaotic world. The chaotic world had long disappeared into the chaotic void. Even with Jiang Renhuang's cultivation, it was difficult to find it. One should know that the chaotic void was just too vast. Then it could only be the heaven realm. It was not an easy task for Ji Yu Fei to undergo the tribulation in the heaven realm. One should know that the end of the ancient road to heaven was the Forbidden Zone. Jiang Renhuang did not want to attack the Forbidden Zone now. Of course, with the help of the Cauldron of Mountain and River, he had some confidence that he could send Ji Yu Fei to the heaven realm. In the end, Jiang Renhuang agreed to Ji Yu Fei's request and the two left the Jiang clan of the Desolation. Jiang Renhuang took a step forward and a golden path immediately appeared beneath his feet. The golden path carried Jiang Renhuang and Ji Yufei and instantly disappeared into the distance. This time, they did not use the teleportation formation. As Ji Yufei stood on the golden path, he felt the void around him distorting. But soon, the scenery around him suddenly became clear. In the next moment, he looked around and was shocked to the extreme. In front of him, there was an ancient path that went straight into the sky. That ancient path was the ancient road to heaven. However, in an instant, he had gone from the ancestral ground of the Jiang clan of the Desolation to the depths of the East Sky Market. This speed was too shocking. Jiang Renhuang was indeed the human emperor. No wonder he could challenge a supreme being. With just one step, he had crossed into the East Sky Market. If Jiang Renhuang wanted to, he could go anywhere on the ancestral soaring dragon star. Who is that? Soon, the cultivators wandering around the ancient road to heaven noticed Jiang Renhuang and Ji Yufei. Jiang Renhuang was wearing a beast skin and looked like a hunter that walked out of the mountains. He was very inconspicuous. No one would have thought that this hunter was the supreme human emperor who could challenge a supreme being. That person is standing with Ji Yufei. Could he be a holy venerable? No one could see through Jiang Renhuang's cultivation. This person, the silhouettes of some ancient sages could be seen in the distance. When the ancient sages saw the figure clad in beast skin, their faces immediately changed and they immediately retreated. All right, let's begin. Jiang Renhuang waved his hand and an ancient cauldron flew over from the distance and landed in his hand. This ancient cauldron was the mountain and river cauldron that Ji Yufei had placed in the city lord's palace of Wanxiang City. Swoosh. Chapter 2656. Yang and Ji Yuling were hiding in the cauldron of mountain and river, planning to sneak into the heavenly realm. But who was Jiang Renhuang? He naturally sensed that there were people in the cauldron of mountain and river, so he poured Yang and Ji Yuling out. Ji Yufei didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this scene. Buzz. At this moment, the cauldron in Jiang Renhuang's hand vibrated. A silhouette appeared on top of the cauldron. It was the god inside the cauldron. Old man, you are not reliable. When Ji Yuling saw the little old man, she immediately called out. Greetings, Renhuang. The old man ignored Ji Yuling and cupped his fists at Jiang Renhuang. What? Human emperor? When Ji Yuling heard the little old man's words, her shock was no small matter. She had never imagined that this ordinary man in beast skin would be the legendary invincible emperor. The human emperor is also very ordinary. I thought that the human emperor was an invincible hero who could make the heavens and earth tremble. Ji Yuling murmured. The human emperor in front of her was worlds apart from the image of the human emperor that she had imagined. The perfect image in her heart was instantly shattered. Don't be rude. Ji Yufei walked over and pulled Ji Yuling to his side. This was the Renhuang. How could she talk nonsense in front of him? My daughter is rude, I hope the Renhuang does not mind. Ji Yufei said to Renhuang. At this moment, Ji Yuling hid behind Ji Yufei and stuck out her tongue. She looked mischievous and did not take Ji Yufei's words to heart. It's okay. Jiang Renhuang waved his hand. Greetings, Senior Renhuang. At this moment, Yang walked up and bowed to the human emperor. She was about to kneel down. No need to be so polite. Renhuang raised his right hand and Yang immediately stopped. It's very easy for you to enter the heaven realm. Ji Yufei, if you put them into your inner world, won't you be able to bring them into the heaven realm? Jiang Renhuang said. Not bad. Isn't that simple? There's no need to go so far. The little old man chimed in from the side. Do you really want to follow me to the heaven realm? Ji Yufei looked at Yang and Ji Yuling, then said very seriously. One must know that he did not go to the heaven realm to play, but to undergo tribulation. The heaven realm had perfect laws of heaven and earth. Going through the tribulation in the heaven realm could make Ji Yufei's Tao foundation more stable, paving the way for him to become a supreme expert in the future. Father, I want to go to the heaven realm. Ji Yuling said excitedly. Ever since the appearance of the ancient road to heaven, it had evoked her yearning for the heaven world. That was the perfect world that all experts wanted to enter. Yang naturally didn't want to leave Jiu Fei. Wherever Jiu Fei went, she would follow. Alright, that's it then. With a wave of his hand, Jiu Fei took Yang and Jiu Ling into his inner world. Alright, let's begin. At this moment, even the little old man was a little excited. One must know that he hadn't really fought for a long time. To be able to join hands with Jiang Renhuang, he had to be serious. Finally, I can enter that world again. Jiu Fei felt that the battle blood in his body was boiling, and the speed of his blood circulation was much faster. A strong will to fight spread from his body. Jiang Renhuang and the little old man looked at each other. This Jiu Fei was a good seedling, with the potential to become a supreme expert. This was the most amazing young talent they had ever seen. What are they doing? At this moment, many powerful figures appeared in the distance. There were figures of ancient saints, but no one dared to get too close. Someone recognized Jiang Renhuang. Although these people were very strong, and they had achieved the Tao since the ancient times, compared to Jiang Renhuang, these people were trash, not even worthy to carry his shoes. This was the gap between them, and these people all knew their place. Isn't that the legendary mountain and river cauldron? Someone also recognized the ancient cauldron in Jiang Renhuang's hand. Although the ancient cauldron looked ordinary, it gave people an endless sense of vicissitudes. What's going on? Are they going to flatten the forbidden area in the heaven realm? Someone guessed. There had been a rumor that Jiu Fei had gone to the Jiang clan of the antiquity to visit Jiang Renhuang. It seemed that he had finally invited Jiang Renhuang. With Jiang Renhuang's help, it should not be a problem to flatten the forbidden area in the heaven realm. Some people were very excited. The obstacle on the ancient road to heaven could finally be removed. This way, they could freely enter and exit the heaven realm. At this time, more and more people received the news and rushed to the vicinity of the ancient road to heaven. The leaders of the super forces were all here. Chariots stopped in the sky, emitting a powerful aura that seemed like the void was about to collapse. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't be able to withstand the aura of a sect master like this. Therefore, there were no weak cultivators near the ancient road to heaven. Everyone was a strong cultivator. Finally, even the Eastern Sky Tyrant Emperor came. The mountain and river cauldron, behind the bronze mask of the Eastern Sky Tyrant Emperor, there were two extremely sharp eyes. He stared at the ancient cauldron in Jiang Renhuang's hand with a complicated look. At this time, the Emperor's sword in his body was vibrating, as if it was about to rush out. To a certain extent, the Supreme Emperor Divine Weapon was the same as the Extreme Saint Weapon. They were both the strongest divine weapons in history. When two divine weapons met, they would naturally sense each other. He actually walked together with Jiang Renhuang. The two doyens of the Dongfang clan appeared behind the Eastern Sky Tyrant Emperor. This Jiu Fei's luck is too heaven-defying. He actually has a relationship with Jiang Renhuang and even invited him. One of the doyens frowned and said, Jiang Renhuang. The Eastern Sky Tyrant Emperor's eyes became even sharper. The birth of the human sovereign was definitely a sensational event in the cultivation world of the human realm. Even the experts from the outer star system were alarmed. The super forces of the 5 ancestral planets still had ways to come to the soaring dragon ancestral planet. There were secret passages in the Kunlun ancestral planet that led to the 5 ancestral planets. Some of the ancient passages were reconnected. Not long after, the experts of the 5 ancestral planets would be able to travel to and fro. Just as Jiang Renhuang and the deities of the mountain and river cauldron were preparing to send Jiu Fei to the heaven realm, in a hidden small world in the eastern domain, on a towering mountain, rays of dazzling golden light rushed out. An extremely powerful aura spread from the peak of the mountain, and the whole small world was shaking. Then, a ball of golden light rose from the peak of the mountain, emitting billions of divine rays. It was like a golden sun had appeared in this small world. It was a divine cocoon covered with golden runes, and a powerful aura was emitted from the divine cocoon. This was the ancestral land of the golden-eyed godly ape. It was an extremely stable small world. At this time, this small world was in great turmoil. When the golden cocoon appeared, The whole world seemed to be falling apart. Pitch-black spatial cracks kept appearing in the void. The aura emitted from the golden cocoon continued to increase, and the whole small world seemed to be on the verge of collapsing at any time. At this critical moment, golden runes emerged in this small world, emitting a powerful aura of the Great Path, and stabilized this part of the world. Boom! When the aura emitted from the golden cocoon increased to its limit, a loud noise was heard. The golden cocoon exploded, and a figure appeared in the void. Roar! The figure roared at the sky. The small world that had been stabilized by the golden runes began to shake violently again, and terrifying spatial cracks appeared. The figure emitted an immortal golden light, and 9 golden runes emerged on his body, emitting a powerful aura of the Great Path that could change the color of the world. I've finally succeeded. I can leave the mountain, haha, the figure laughed. Then, he directly tore open the void, took a step forward, and directly left this small world. On this day, a powerful energy fluctuation appeared in the eastern domain. A great figure was born. The dazzling golden light illuminated the whole world, and the entire eastern domain was shaken. Especially the East Sky Emperor, Yuan Jiyu, who was extremely nervous because he knew who was born. After being silent for so long, this guy finally came out. The monkey is born. Good, very good. The old tortoise received the news and couldn't help but be surprised and happy. The golden-eyed godly ape also had a supreme expert, and his background was no weaker than the old tortoise's. The monkey's father was a supreme existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with a supreme being. Just when the atmosphere in the eastern domain became tense, in the human world, in the depths of the sky market, Jiang Renhuang held the mountain and river cauldron in his hand and stepped on the ancient road to heaven. Is it finally going to start? Everyone who saw this scene was extremely nervous and excited. Even the sect masters were the same. These people were more eager to enter the heaven realm than ordinary experts. One should know that no one knew the importance of the heaven realm better than them. Just when Jiang Renhuang stepped on the ancient road to heaven, a white silhouette appeared in front of him. This person was Ghost Emperor Fengju. Renhuang, please wait. Ghost Emperor Fengju wanted to stop Jiang Renhuang. Seeing this scene, everyone's heart tightened. What was this guy doing here? However, Jiang Renhuang did not stop. He continued to step on the ancient road to heaven. This made everyone heave a sigh of relief. Even Ghost Emperor Fengju could not stop Renhuang. What does he want to do? Far in the sky, a skinny figure was standing there. However, even the sect master level existences didn't seem to be able to see him. This person had a head full of withered and messy hair. The withered yellow hair covered his face, and 2 eyes could be seen behind his hair. Renhuang, please wait. Chapter 2657. Renhuang stepped on the ancient road to heaven. At this moment, everyone was nervous. That was Renhuang, the most powerful being in the world. Ghost King Fengju wanted to stop Renhuang, thinking that Renhuang was going to destroy the forbidden area in the heaven realm. Destroying the forbidden area was definitely something that could affect both the heaven realm and the human realm. Now was not the time. Soon, Renhuang and Jiyu Fei appeared on the blood-red platform at the end of the road. Yes. Renhuang noticed the blood on the platform. The blood was crystal clear, as if it had just been splashed. There was a red light flowing on it. This blood is very evil, something bad has happened. Jiyu Fei said to Renhuang Jiang. The blood of a supreme being has an inextinguishable will to fight. Those people were injured, who was it? Jiang Renhuang murmured to himself. He pondered for a while. A supreme warrior being injured was not a small matter. One should know that those who could injure a supreme warrior must be at the same level as him. Jiyu Fei didn't dare to disturb Renhuang. At this moment, Ghost King Fengju also arrived on the platform. Greetings, Senior Ghost King. Jiyu Fei quickly bowed to Ghost King Fengju. Why aren't you staying in your ghost nest? What are you doing here? At this moment, Renhuang Jiang came back to his senses. He was holding the mountain and river cauldron. On top of the cauldron sat a thumb-sized old man. The old man was dozing off. Now is not the right time. Ghost King Fengju said anxiously. What do you mean it's not the right time? Ren Huangjiang was confused. Didn't you want to destroy the forbidden area in the heaven realm? Ghost King Fengju was confused. Who said I wanted to destroy the forbidden area? Ren Huangjiang said calmly. Then you guys. Ghost King Fengju was even more confused. If he didn't want to destroy the forbidden area, then why did Ren Huang bring the mountain and river cauldron here? Was he here to play? Senior Ghost King, it seems that you misunderstood. We are not going to destroy the forbidden area. Ji Yufei quickly explained. Not to destroy the forbidden area. Ghost Emperor Fengju was bewildered. However, it was impossible for a dignified human sovereign to lie to him. It seemed that there might really be an inside story behind this matter. I only sent Ji Yufei into the heaven realm to undergo tribulation. The human emperor said. He originally didn't want to explain, but this Ghost Emperor Fengju's background wasn't ordinary. He had people behind him, so he couldn't deal with him casually. You are the one who is going to undergo the tribulation, the holy venerate tribulation. Who was Ghost Emperor Fengju? He could see through Ji Yufei's cultivation at a glance. That unremarkable brat from back then had actually reached this step. So you want to send Ji Yufei to the heaven realm? Ghost Emperor Fengju seemed to have thought of something, and the way he looked at Ji Yufei changed. One must know that the power of heaven's wrath in the human realm had disappeared. Going to the heaven realm instead of the mortal realm was an unnecessary move in the eyes of other cultivators, but in the eyes of Ghost Emperor Fengju, it was necessary. This Ji Yufei's ambition was higher than the sky. He was actually paving the way to become a supreme expert. Since Jiang Renhuang didn't want to destroy the forbidden area, Ghost Emperor Fengju was relieved. However, sending someone into the heaven realm without destroying the forbidden area was not an easy task. The power of the forbidden area sealed the exit of the ancient road to heaven, but with Jiang Renhuang and the mountain and river cauldron, they definitely had the ability to break the seal. In the eyes of Ghost Emperor Fengju, the combination of the human emperor and the extreme Dao Saint tool was more than enough to destroy the entire forbidden area, not to mention sending someone into the heaven realm. Let's begin. Jiang Renhuang said. At this time, the little old man who was dozing off on the mountain and river cauldron suddenly jumped up, and suddenly became 100 times more energetic. Let's get to work, let's get to work, let's get a good night's sleep after this. The little old man shouted. You sleepy thing. Ji Yufei looked at the little old man snappily. You are the sleepy thing, your whole family are sleepy things. When the little old man heard Ji Yufei's words, he immediately jumped up and shouted at Ji Yufei. Rumble. At this time, Jiang Renhuang made his move. A surge of Emperor Ultimate Might exploded from his body, and the whole world seemed like it was going to collapse. Even Ghost Emperor Fengju's heart was pounding. The invincibility of the human emperor was not just a legend. One should know that the ancient human emperor was a supreme existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with the supremes. However, this Emperor Ultimate Might was not directed at Ghost Emperor Fengju and the others. When the Emperor Ultimate Might appeared in the world, an equally terrifying aura surged from the depths of the western underworld sea. A huge underworld palace broke through the underworld sea and rose from the depths of the sea. Streams of chaotic air fell from the top of the underworld palace like a chaotic dragon. Emperor Ultimate Sovereign, I didn't think there would be such a being in this world. A violent divine sense spread out from the underworld palace. On the throne of the underworld palace sat a chaotic skeleton. Chaotic Dao runes revolved around the skeleton, emitting an extreme aura. The bones left behind by the Supremes were the primal Chaos Supreme bones. Each bone contained extremely powerful chaotic energy. This kind of creature would become the most terrifying and powerful existence in the world once it developed a spiritual sense. There is indeed a great secret in the forbidden area. Jiang Renhuang sensed the existence in the underworld palace and couldn't help but feel surprised. With his cultivation, he was not afraid of anything in this world. The appearance of the primal Chaos Supreme bones only made Jiang Renhuang slightly surprised. At this moment, the Supreme Emperor's divine aura from the human emperor was transmitted to the human world through the ancient road to heaven, shocking all the experts gathered in the sky market to the extreme. Even the saints couldn't bear the Emperor's ultimate might at this time. Their souls were trembling, and they couldn't help but want to kneel down. This kind of pressure was too terrifying. The saints were high and mighty existences. How could they kneel down to others? However, the fear came from the depths of their souls. They couldn't control it at all. It was the most primitive reaction. The Emperor's ultimate might could shake the heavens. Is Emperor's ultimate might really flatten the forbidden area? Someone said. At this time, the Emperor's ultimate might had already spread across the heaven realm. The experts of the heaven realm were instantly alarmed. Everyone was indescribably shocked. Emperor's ultimate might, that direction, on a mountain in the western region of the heaven realm, a black-robed man who was sitting cross-legged on a boulder suddenly stood up. He then turned around and looked in the direction of the western underworld sea. Emperor, someone is using the Emperor's ultimate weapon. Let's go and see. That person took a step forward and instantly disappeared into the void. Chapter 2658. The West Underworld Sea once again attracted the attention of all the experts in the heaven realm. Rumble, in the East region, in the Celestial City, an ancient formation platform vibrated. Runes intertwined with each other and a figure disappeared from the ancient formation platform. Both the South region and the North region had ancient teleportation portals that were being revived. Peerless experts were using the ancient teleportation portals to travel between regions. When all the experts in the heaven realm were rushing towards the West Underworld Sea, Renhuang made his move. He stretched out his right hand and pressed towards the sky. He broke the seal of the forbidden area and created a spatial passageway. Chumph, do you think I'm not here? A discontented divine sense came from the underworld palace. Then, a beam of chaotic light rushed out from the underworld palace, trying to cut off the spatial passageway. Hehe, it's time for me to show up. At this moment, the mountain and river cauldron in Renhuang Jiang's hand flew up and enlarged rapidly. It rushed out from the bloody platform. The primordial chaos chi was vast and mighty. It broke the seal of the forbidden area and intercepted the beam of chaotic light. What's going on? The chaos skeleton in the underworld palace was taken aback. At this moment, an ancient cauldron had already crashed into the underworld palace. A wave of energy that made the chaos skeleton's heart palpitate spread from the ancient cauldron. Boom! With a loud bang, the ancient cauldron crashed into the underworld palace fiercely. The powerful impact sent the underworld palace flying. Cracks appeared on the surface of the underworld palace. At this moment, streaks of chaotic runes emerged from the underworld palace and stabilized the entire underworld palace. Otherwise, the entire underworld palace would have collapsed under the impact. Roar! A furious roar came from the underworld palace. The chaos skeleton in the underworld palace was shocked to the extreme. This ancient cauldron was so powerful. Could it be the legendary mountain and river cauldron? The chaos skeleton thought of this possibility. Ayo, this thing is quite sturdy. The little old man came out from the mountain and river cauldron and said while scratching his messy hair. Cauldron soul. In the underworld palace, the chaotic skeleton was shocked again. It's an extreme sacred tool. It seems that you've prepared well. Do you want to flatten this place? The chaos skeleton's voice was cold and full of murderous intent. Hee, can't I? If you're afraid of dying again, then hurry up and scram. Otherwise, I'll kill you again. The little old man waved his fist fiercely and said. TSK, with just you? The chaos skeleton in the underworld palace sneered. Preposterous. How dare you look down on me? I'll teach you a lesson. The little old man seemed to be really angry. He then dove straight into the mountain and river cauldron. Buzz. The mountain river cauldron emitted a humming sound. The primordial chaos chi was vast and mighty. The mountain river cauldron immediately became blurry and a figure appeared in the void. The supreme saint weapon has transformed. The tone of the chaos skeleton in the underworld palace was extremely solemn. Only this kind of invincible divine weapon that had nurtured a god's will within it could transform. This was the unique magical ability of a supreme divine weapon. A tall and mighty figure clad in bronze armor appeared in the void. This person was none other than the little old man. If I get angry, The consequences will be severe. The little old man stared angrily at the chaos skeleton in the underworld palace. He waved his right hand and a primordial chaos divine sword appeared in his hand. Just as the god's will of the mountain and river cauldron was about to unleash its power, Jiang Renhuang immediately used the human emperor's magical ability and sent Ji Fei into the space tunnel that he had opened up. Boom! A terrifying aura filled the air. The god's will of the mountain and river cauldron transformed into a mighty god of war and fought against the chaos skeleton in the underworld palace. The entire West Underworld Sea was hit by the power of the extreme path, creating huge waves that reached the sky. The extreme path of power was exploding. The West Underworld Sea seemed like it was about to be destroyed. The little old man was really angry. He swung the primordial chaos sword in his hand, creating huge cracks in the void between heaven and earth. The chaos skeleton walked out of the underworld palace. It held the chaos battle spear in its hand and fought against the little old man. It was like a battle between two supreme beings of the extreme path. Everyone was shocked to the extreme. There were many ancient palaces hidden at the bottom of the West Underworld Sea. However, at this moment, these ancient palaces were like paper. Under the influence of the extreme path of power, they turned into dust. The powerful dead spirits in the ancient palaces were all destroyed. However, the ruler of the West Underworld Sea was the Chaos Skeleton. Those dead spirits were all destroyed. As long as the Chaos Skeleton was not dead, the West Underworld Sea would continue to exist. At this moment, Ji Fei's figure disappeared in the space tunnel. He was sent out. Everything went smoothly. Without the Chaos Skeleton stopping him, Ji Fei successfully entered the Heaven Realm. However, no one knew where he was sent to. "All right, it's over. We should go." With a wave of Jiang Renhuang's hand, the space tunnel disappeared into the void. Even a powerful being like the Chaos Skeleton would find it difficult to track Ji Fei. "Go my ass. I'm going to kill this guy," the little old man said angrily. As he spoke, he was still attacking. He was extremely strong, forcing the Chaos Skeleton to retreat. "You don't have the right to kill me," the Chaos Skeleton said. Its body was filled with chaotic energy. The Chaos Divine fire in its skull was like a Chaos Divine sun, emitting a dazzling light. "Damn you! Do you think I'm a sick cat if I don't show my power?" The little old man was furious. The Chaos Primordial sword light shot through the sky, almost cutting down the stars in the sky. The Chaos Primordial sword slashed on the Chaos Skeleton, leaving sword marks. The Chaos Skeleton was shocked. This old man was really scary when he was angry. "Kill." The Chaos Skeleton performed a great skill. Chaos Dao patterns intertwined and a huge seal appeared in the void. It then smashed towards the little old man. Roar! The little old man slashed out 3 times in a row and directly destroyed the primal chaos seal. Then, he stabbed his sword towards the skull of the primal chaos skeleton. Swoosh! The chaos skeleton's figure became blurry and disappeared in the void. The little old man's sword missed. "All right, we should go," Jiang Renhuang said to the little old man telepathically. "No, I'm going to kill this bastard." The little old man did not want to let the chaos skeleton go. Swoosh! At this moment, Jiang Renhuang took a step forward on the crimson platform and passed through the seal of the forbidden zone. Then, he slapped and a figure was pushed out. The chaos skeleton was shocked. It did not expect Jiang Renhuang to have such combat strength. At this moment, Jiang Renhuang stretched out his hand and grabbed the chaos skeleton. His 5 fingers were on the skull of the chaos skeleton. As long as he exerted force, the chaos skeleton would be destroyed. This. Chapter 2659. Jiang Renhuang made his move and captured the chaotic skeleton in an instant. Everyone who witnessed this scene was shocked to the extreme. That was an existence that could fight against the deity of the cauldron of mountain and river. It was a supreme expert cultivated from the remains of a supreme being. The chaotic supreme bone was so powerful that even a supreme divine weapon could not damage it. Even the little old man transformed from the god of the mountain and river cauldron was startled. He had fought against the chaos skeleton before, so he knew very well how powerful this undead spirit was. On the crimson platform in front of the ancient road to heaven, Ghost Emperor Fengju was also dumbfounded. Jiang Runhuang's cultivation and strength were far beyond his imagination. Ghost Emperor Fengju was shocked. The power of the chaotic skeleton was obvious to all. The deity of the cauldron of mountain and river was not a weakling. The cauldron of mountain and river was one of the oldest sacred weapons in the world. When the cauldron of mountain and river appeared, the supreme Tao ancestor and the martial ancestor were still nowhere to be found. At this moment, Jiang Runhuang's right hand clasped the skull of the chaotic skeleton. A powerful ultimate emperor energy surged from his hand and sealed the chaotic skeleton. The chaotic skeleton, which was strong enough to fight against the deity of the cauldron of mountain and river, could not even fight back in front of Jiang Renhuang. This scene was extremely shocking. Even the experts of the heaven realm were so shocked that their eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. It should be known that the three great emperors and the demon lord had attacked the western underworld sea before, but they had all failed. How can there be such a powerful being in this world? The experts of the heaven realm could not imagine the ultimate emperor energy that was exuding from that person. Even the saints had the urge to kneel before the supreme Renhuang. Humph, killing you is as easy as killing a chicken. Jiang Renhuang looked at the chaotic skeleton and said indifferently, "Don't." At this moment, the chaotic skeleton felt fear for the first time. Its life was under great threat. It was completely in the hands of the opponent. Its life was in the hands of the opponent. Renhuang, on the crimson platform in front of the ancient road to heaven, Ghost Emperor Fengju's voice trembled. "Ha ha, human emperor, hand him over to me. I will definitely make him beg for death." The little old man recovered from the shock and laughed. This chaos skeleton was really hateful. He couldn't wait to teach this chaos skeleton a lesson. Yes, the forbidden zone still has its value. Now is not the time to flatten it. Jiang Renhuang thought for a moment, then he raised his hand and threw the chaotic skeleton in his hand. Bang! The chaotic skeleton hit the underworld hall that was floating in the sky. Under the impact of the chaotic skeleton, the underworld hall immediately shook violently. The chaotic chi was vast and mighty, and it was on the verge of collapse. "Thank you, human emperor, for not killing me." The chaos skeleton hurriedly saluted the human sovereign and rushed into the underworld palace. The entire underworld palace immediately descended from the sky and entered the depths of the underworld sea. "Human emperor, why did you let that guy go?" Seeing that Jiang Renhuang let go of the chaotic skeleton, the little old man in the cauldron of mountain and river was confused. Since he had already captured the chaotic skeleton, he might as well flatten this forbidden zone. Jiang Renhuang glanced at the unhappy little old man. He did not say anything and directly reached out his hand to grab the little old man. "W.A., Renhuang, what are you doing?" The little old man immediately flew towards Jiang Renhuang involuntarily. He turned back into a fist-sized cauldron and landed on Renhuang's right hand. Seeing this, everyone could feel the strength of Renhuang. Whether it was the chaotic skeleton or the cauldron of mountain and river, they were no match for him. Buzz! The cauldron of Jiang Renhuang's hand was shaking. It wanted to fly up into the sky and escape from Renhuang's control. "You better behave. Before Jiyu Fei returns to the human world, you will follow me," Jiang Renhuang said to the cauldron of mountain and river. Then, the cauldron in his hand calmed down and no longer resisted. After keeping the cauldron of mountain and river, Renhuang disappeared into the void. In the next moment, he appeared on the blood-colored platform without a sound. It was strange. After Renhuang appeared, nothing ominous happened on the bloodstains on the platform. Those bloody shadows did not appear. Renhuang did not remove the bloodstains on the platform. Instead, he walked into the ancient road to heaven and disappeared. This was within Ghost Emperor Fengju's expectation. However, it still made him tremble with fear. One should know that flattening a forbidden zone in the heaven realm was not a small matter. As the saying goes, pull one hair and the whole body will be affected. Flattening a forbidden zone in the heaven realm was not a small matter. Ghost King Fengju heaved a sigh of relief when Jiang Renhuang didn't kill the chaos skeleton. It was not the right time yet. If they were not prepared, the consequences would be dire. Ghost Emperor Fengju did not want to cause unnecessary trouble. However, a supreme existence like Renhuang Jiang was not someone that Ghost Emperor Fengju could control. Moreover, there was another supreme existence in his ghost palace that was not weaker than Renhuang Jiang. These two supreme existences were definitely the biggest variable in this world. Because there was nothing in this world that they were afraid of. No one knew what kind of earth-shattering things they would do in the next moment. As the Renhuang left, a strange aura was immediately emitted from the crimson platform. Numerous crimson figures appeared in the void. This is, Ghost Emperor Fengju was shocked. It seemed that only Renhuang could suppress the ominous aura here. After Renhuang left, this place immediately became different. The battle ended. Ghost Emperor Fengju also rushed into the ancient road to heaven and disappeared. After Ghost Emperor Fengju left, the bloody shadows that appeared on the blood-colored platform immediately disappeared in the void. It was as if they had never appeared. The water in the human realm is really deep. There is actually an invincible human emperor. Someone whispered outside the western underworld sea. The strength of Renhuang was obvious to all. Even the ruler of the Forbidden Zone was not a match for Renhuang. In the eyes of all the experts in the Heaven Realm, the human emperor definitely had the strength to flatten the Forbidden Zone. However, they did not know why Renhuang did not flatten the Forbidden Zone. This was very puzzling. Some old antiques thought of many things, but they could not say it out loud. Just as the battle in the West Netherworld Sea came to an end, somewhere in the Heaven Realm, the void high up in the sky suddenly shook like water ripples. Chapter 2660. Somewhere in the Heaven Realm, the space suddenly trembled. Then, a silhouette fell out of the void. This person was Ji Fei. After Ji Fei fell out of the void, he directly fell down from the sky and crashed into the forest below. In the next moment, Ji Fei flew up from the forest and arrived at a high altitude. He then scanned his surroundings. What he saw was an endless mountain range, verdant and full of life. Damn, what is this place? Ji Fei was dumbfounded. This place was deserted and he couldn't even ask around. Plus, there weren't any particularly strong living beings in this mountain range. Forget it, the reason why he asked Jiang Renhuang to help him enter the Heaven Realm was not to have fun, but to undergo the heavenly tribulation. Ji Fei then found a valley to settle down temporarily. The valley was filled with birdsong and fragrant flowers. The scenery was beautiful and it was one of the few places in the mountain range. He sat on a big rock in the depths of the valley and began to adjust his condition. One should know that he was about to face the heavenly tribulation of the Holy Sovereign, he must not be careless. Roar. After nightfall, the roars of some beasts could be heard from time to time in the mountain range. Strong silhouettes could be seen walking in the mountain range. However, Ji Fei was not afraid. Even if a holy sovereign came, he still had the strength to fight. The heavenly Tao in the Heaven Realm was complete and flawless. Ji Fei's ambition was higher than the sky, he was paving the way for him to become a powerhouse in the future. Time passed by. Ji Fei seemed to have merged with the void of this world and could feel the great Tao of this world. This kind of perfect Tao of heaven and earth was exactly what the human world lacked. Ji Fei sensed the pulse of the heavens and earth and remained motionless, as though he had turned into a stone statue. He was in a mysterious state of cultivation. No one could sense Ji Fei's existence. Some beasts wandered outside the valley, but in the end, they did not enter. When the first rays of dawn appeared, Ji Fei woke up from his meditative state. He opened his eyes and stood up. After a night of meditation, he felt refreshed. Undergoing the tribulation here seems like a pretty good choice. Ji Fei suddenly thought of this. In a place where there were no traces of people, undergoing the tribulation here should not alarm anyone. However, he felt a little uneasy. Finally, Ji Fei shot up from the valley and arrived high up in the sky. After getting his bearings, he flew toward the south. After flying for 4 hours in a row, what entered his eyes was still an endless mountain range. This caused Ji Fei to be incomparably shocked. This mountain range was just too vast. This can't be the southern mountains, right? Ji Fei suddenly thought of this and couldn't help being shocked. The southern mountain range was an incomparably vast mountain range in the southern part of the heavenly realm. Even if one could determine the direction, wanting to leave this place was not an easy matter. How unlucky! Ji Fei knew that Jiang Renhuang had most likely thrown him into the southern mountains. Otherwise, with his speed, he would have rushed out of the mountain range in 2 to 4 hours. That is, just as Ji Fei was getting impatient, a huge mountain suddenly appeared in front of him. On top of the mountain, there were pavilions and terraces. Haha, finally, there are traces of people. Ji Fei was overjoyed. He immediately unleashed his 8-step speed and dashed toward the spiritual mountain. Very quickly, he arrived near the mountain. What's going on? When he got closer, Ji Fei was shocked to find that there was not a single person on the mountain. He was not in a hurry to ascend the mountain. He began to wander around the mountain and carefully observed. However, the conclusion he obtained was the same. There was nothing wrong with this place. However, the people here were gone. After confirming that there was no danger, Ji Fei climbed up the mountain. The people on the mountain seemed to have disappeared into thin air. Only some empty buildings were left. Very quickly, Ji Fei arrived at the top of the mountain. The moment Ji Fei set foot on the top of the mountain, he was astonished by what he saw. On the top of the mountain, there was a giant blood cocoon. The blood cocoon reeked of blood. The blood cocoon did not emit any energy waves, but Ji Fei knew that this blood cocoon was not ordinary. I'm afraid the disappearance of the people on the mountain has something to do with this blood cocoon. Ji Fei thought of this possibility. He picked up a stone and threw it at the blood cocoon. Bang! The stone landed heavily on the blood cocoon and fell to the ground. Ji Fei stared at the blood cocoon nervously. However, the blood cocoon did not react at all. This made him feel even more uneasy. He was curious about what was inside the blood cocoon. Just as Ji Fei was about to attack again, the blood cocoon suddenly vibrated. A shocking aura exploded from the blood cocoon. What? Ji Fei's shock was no small matter. He could sense a demonic aura. It was as if a terrifying demon was being nurtured within the blood cocoon, turning blood into a cocoon and breaking the cocoon to be reborn. This is the technique of a blood demon. At this moment, Ji Fei could roughly guess where the people on the mountain had gone. Swoosh! At this moment, a blood light rushed out from the blood cocoon and wrapped around Ji Fei. "Chimph, you don't know what's good for you." Ji Fei sneered and punched forward. The strong fist force dispersed the bloodlight and even the blood cocoon was sent flying. Buzz! The void shook and the blood cocoon seemed to have been hit. After that, it exploded with bloodlight and 9 blood-colored demonic marks appeared on the blood cocoon. Ji Fei did not hesitate. He flipped his right hand and a black sword appeared in his hand. This was the 9 Heaven Stars sword, a divine sword that he had refined himself. Swoosh! Ji Fei slashed at the blood cocoon in front of him. A black light rushed out from the divine sword and fell on the blood cocoon, splitting it in half. Roar! A furious roar came from the blood cocoon, and a crimson light soared into the sky. Then, a figure appeared in the sky. "Brat, how dare you ruin my plan? I want you dead." The crimson shadow swooped down from the sky towards Ji Fei. A gust of wind immediately assaulted Ji Fei's nostrils, causing him to feel dizzy. "Ha ha!" Ji Fei smiled. Primal chaos divine light emerged from his body, and the 9th Heaven Star's sword in his hand blossomed with a dazzling black light. The cold sword chi spread out, and the surrounding temperature dropped rapidly. Swoosh! Chapter 2661. The blood demon used blood as its power. The more blood it devoured, the stronger it would become. There used to be a cultivation sect on this mountain, but the entire sect had disappeared. Needless to say, they must have been devoured by this blood demon. It devoured a large amount of blood essence and then transformed into a cocoon at the top of the mountain. However, it did not expect Ji Fei to pass by at this time. He noticed the strange phenomenon on the mountain and went up to check. This blood demon was unlucky. Swoosh! With a flash of sword light, Ji Fei slashed the blood demon that was pouncing at him into 2. However, Just when Ji Fei thought that he had gotten rid of the blood demon that he had split into two halves turned into two clouds of blood mist and then merged back together. The blood mist surged and a figure reappeared in the void. The pungent smell of blood permeated the void and the vitality of the surrounding flowers and trees rapidly disappeared. Large patches of grass and trees rapidly withered and turned yellow. Interesting. Ji Fei looked at the blood figure in the void. He did not make a move. This blood demon was not ordinary. It did not die after being slashed by his 9 heaven stars sword. You spoiled my plan. I'm going to eat you. A blood-colored figure appeared. It was a young man dressed in blood-colored clothes. He had a head full of blood-colored hair and a face as pale as paper. He was surrounded by a bloody light. On this young man's forehead, there was a blood-colored demonic mark vaguely appearing. "Ha, it's not certain who will eat who." Ji Fei laughed. "Blood swallows the world." Blood demon roared and waved his hands. A strange blood-red light immediately appeared in the sky. The blood-red light surged and a blood-red vortex appeared in the void. Rumble, the heaven and earth shook. The blood-colored vortex in the sky emitted a powerful devouring force. Then, it tried to devour Ji Fei. The surrounding essence Qi immediately gathered from all directions and entered the vortex. At this moment, Ji Fei stood proudly at the peak of the mountain. No matter how powerful the blood-colored vortex was, it was unable to shake him in the slightest. Soon, all the wood essence on the mountain was completely devoured by the blood-colored vortex in the sky, and all the plants on the mountain were rapidly withering. "That's all you've got." Ji Fei stood there, not even his clothes and hair moved. His entire body was enveloped by a chaotic light. Even though he was in the center of the blood-colored storm, he was still fearless. That blood devil was incomparably shocked. This human was not simple. It seemed like he would be hard to deal with. "All right, it's time to end this." Ji Fei looked calmly at the blood demon in the sky as a shocking battle intent erupted from his body. "Kill." The blood demon roared and swooped down from the sky. A terrifying blood-red vortex shrouded the entire mountain, causing it to shake. Hideous cracks appeared on the mountain, as if the entire mountain was about to collapse. Buzz. The divine sword in Ji Fei's hand vibrated as an incomparably sharp sword qi rippled out from the sword. Swoosh. Ji Fei waved the divine sword in his hand, causing a beam of sword light to shoot up into the sky. It broke through the layers of blood-colored light and slashed towards the blood demon. The blood demon was taken aback. Boundless blood-colored light condensed and a blood saber appeared in his hand. It emitted an endless amount of strange blood-colored light as blood-colored demonic runes appeared and interweaved on the surface of the blood saber. Roar! The blood demon roared and slashed out with all his might. A towering blood-colored light erupted from the blood saber in his hand, dyeing the entire sky red. Clang! The blood-colored demonic saber and the sword light collided violently, emitting an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing and rubbing. Boom! A strong force spread out, and the mountain beneath Ji Fei's feet exploded into dust. The dust spread out, covering the entire area. "You're quite capable, but since you've met me, you're doomed." Ji Fei shot up into the sky and broke through the blood-colored vortex in the sky. After that, he started fighting with the blood demon. The 9 heaven stars sword in his hand clashed continuously with the demonic saber in the blood demon's hand, producing dazzling sparks. "Your qi and blood are monstrous. You're the best food for me," the blood demon said with a ferocious look. "Tsk. You," Ji Fei said disdainfully. He slashed out with his sword, forcing the blood demon to retreat. After that, he approached the blood demon in an instant and punched him. An extremely strong force surged out from his fist. Bang! The blood demon also punched out. The two fists collided and the sound of bones breaking was heard. The blood demon's fist immediately exploded and turned into a cloud of blood mist. What? The blood demon was shocked. He had never expected Yi Futian's physical strength to be so strong. What was even more terrifying was that Yi Futian's strength rushed into his body through his arm. In just an instant, half of the blood demon's body was covered in cracks. It was like an exquisite porcelain had been shattered. Bang! Ji Fei charged over and directly blew up the blood demon's entire body, turning him into a cloud of blood mist. At the same time, a divine light surged out from between his eyebrows and transformed into a sword that slashed out. Swoosh! The sword flashed and a blood shadow was immediately destroyed. This was one of the 9 secrets of the immortal Tao, the primordial soul sword secret art. It specialized in attacking the primordial soul. The blood demon was immediately injured. However, this cunning demon had cultivated more than one primordial soul. A total of 9 blood shadows rushed out in all directions. The blood shadow that Ji Fei's primordial soul sword secret art had destroyed was just one of the 9. A shadow wrapped around the blood saber and rushed into the sky in an attempt to escape. Trying to escape? It won't be that easy. The 9 heavenly stars soared in Ji Fei's hand, flew up and transformed into a black beam of light that shot into the sky. It instantly caught up to the blood saber and slashed it down from the sky. At the same time, beams of chaotic divine light constantly surged out from between Ji Fei's eyebrows. They transformed into swords that slashed at the fleeing blood shadows. At that moment, the blood demon finally understood the gap between him and his opponent. If his opponent wanted to kill him, it would be like child's play. If he didn't escape now, he would probably lose his life here. However, just as Ji Fei had said, it was a tragedy for the blood demon to encounter him. The remaining 8 blood shadows were constantly destroyed by the chaotic sword light that chased after them. The blood demon, who had once treated Ji Fei as food, was destroyed just like that. Just as Ji Fei destroyed the blood demon's primordial soul, a divine light appeared in the distant sky. Some experts were alarmed. However, Ji Fei ignored that person and extended his hand. The blood saber that had fallen from the sky flew towards him and landed in his hand. This saber isn't bad. Chapter 2662. The demonic nature of the Bloodblade made it a peerless demonic weapon. No one could wield this demonic weapon other than the experts of the demonic path. The demonic nature of the weapon could turn a cultivator into a devil. Ji Fei took out the purple gold divine sword and sliced the demonic blade in half. A demonic weapon like this would only harm people if it was left in the world. If other devils were to get their hands on it, there was no telling how many living beings would die under this demonic blade. At this time, many figures appeared in the distance. The commotion caused by the battle between Ji Fei and the blood demon was so great that it alarmed many people. Who is this person? Isn't that destroyed demonic blade the blood demon's bloodthirsty demonic blade? Someone whispered. He's the one who killed the blood demon. When did such an expert appear in Sunset Mountain? Someone noticed the demonic aura that hadn't completely dissipated. The air was still filled with the stench of blood. Swoosh. At this time, Ji Fei suddenly disappeared into the void. In the next moment, he appeared in front of a black-bearded middle-aged man. The black-bearded middle-aged man was shocked when he saw Ji Fei suddenly appear in front of him. Greetings, senior. The black-bearded middle-aged man didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly bowed to Ji Fei and addressed himself as a junior. The fact that this person could kill the blood demon that even the Southern Ridge God Emperor couldn't do anything about, meant that he definitely had a powerful background. The black-bearded middle-aged man couldn't help but tremble in fear. I have some questions to ask you. You must answer them honestly. Ji Fei glanced at the black-bearded middle-aged man and said. This was the second cultivator he met since coming to this place. The first one was naturally the blood demon. He wanted to know what this place was from the black-bearded middle-aged man. Yes, this junior will tell you everything he knows. Please ask away, senior, the black-bearded middle-aged man said carefully. When Ji Fei saw the middle-aged cultivator trembling with fear, he didn't say anything and directly asked him what he wanted to know. Very quickly, Ji Fei found out from the black-bearded middle-aged man that this was indeed the Southern Mountains. It was a place called the Sunset Mountain Range in the boundless mountain range of the Southern Mountains. There used to be a sect here called the Heavenly Spirit Sect. However, the name of the Heavenly Spirit Sect had been removed. Even the mountain where the sect was located had been razed to the ground. 1,000 miles away, There was a city called Luoxia City. This Luoxia City was the territory of the Southern Mountains God Emperor. In the Southern Mountains, there were two great emperors. One was the Southern Mountains God Emperor, and the other was the Fire Emperor. The Southern Mountains God Emperor was extremely powerful, but he was afraid of the Fire Emperor. After all, the Fire Emperor was a super antique. He had been sleeping in the fire vein of the earth for countless years. When this emperor was born, he caused a great commotion. The current Nanling Mountains was actually divided and ruled. The two emperors each had their own territories, and the two emperors were very careful and did not want to fight to the death with each other. Very good. After listening to the black-bearded middle-aged man, Jiyu Fei directly took out a spiritual herb and gave it to the black-bearded middle-aged man before leaving. The black-bearded middle-aged man was stunned. After Jiyu Fei left for a while, the black-bearded middle-aged man came back to his senses and was ecstatic. His cultivation had reached a bottleneck. This spiritual herb could definitely help him break through his current cultivation shackles and increase his cultivation greatly. Thank you, Senior. The black-bearded middle-aged man hurriedly left because at this time, the gazes of the people in the distance had become somewhat unfriendly, which made him feel uneasy. For the current Jiyu Fei, the distance of 1,000 miles was covered in the blink of an eye. In just a few steps, a city appeared in front of him. It was a city built with huge rocks. The city wasn't big, but there were many cultivators in the city. Of course, most of the residents were ordinary people. This is Luoxia City. Jiyu Fei stopped in the sky and looked down at the city. His powerful divine sense swept across the city. He found that the most powerful cultivator in the city wasn't in the city lord's mansion, but in an extremely simple house. This simple house was located in the poor area of the city and was very inconspicuous. No one knew that the owner of this house was actually the most powerful existence in Luoxia City. What's going on? In the house in the poor area, an old man suddenly stood up and walked out. He looked up into the sky with an extremely deep gaze, as if he could see through a person's soul. Jiyu Fei didn't pay attention to the old man. Interesting, the most powerful person in Luoxia City isn't actually living in the city lord's mansion. A playful smile appeared on Jiyu Fei's face. He touched his chin and took a step forward, appearing in the sky above the city lord's mansion. Enemy attack. Just as Jiyu Fei appeared in the sky above the city lord's mansion, a loud shout came from the city lord's mansion, completely breaking the peace in the city lord's mansion. The city lord's mansion was in chaos as divine generals rushed out. Whoosh! A divine light rushed out of the city lord's mansion and turned into a light shield, enveloping the entire city lord's mansion. The protective formation of the city lord's mansion had been activated. Jiyu Fei smiled. He took a step forward and directly passed through the layer of light shield, appearing in the city lord's mansion. The protective formation was useless to him. At his level of cultivation, even a great sage-level magical formation couldn't stop him. Moreover, the protective formation of the city lord's mansion wasn't a holy formation. Who are you? Why did you break into this place? A divine general in divine armor braced himself and shouted at Jiyu Fei. His voice was trembling. His opponent's cultivation was too powerful. He could actually pass through the protective formation and enter the city lord's mansion. Why? Isn't the master of this place here? Jiyu Fei stood on the square in front of the city lord's mansion's main hall, looked around and said. At this time, the divine soldiers guarding the city lord's mansion rushed out from all directions and surrounded Jiyu Fei. A fierce aura filled the void. It could be seen that these were elite soldiers who had seen blood. Otherwise, these divine soldiers wouldn't be surrounded by evil chi. I didn't know that fellow Daoist had arrived. This old man didn't go out to welcome you. At this time, an old man in purple clothes and a golden crown walked out of the main hall of the city lord's mansion. Are you the master of this place? Jiyu Fei glanced at the old man who was walking towards him. He found that this old man was just an immortal emperor. However, it was already good to have an immortal emperor in this place. Yes, this old man is the city lord of Luoxia City. May I know why fellow Daoist has come here? Chapter 2663. The arrival of Jiyu Fei shocked the city lord of Luoxia City. One should know that Luoxia City wasn't a big city. Very few existences above the Sage Realm would come here. Luoxia City was located in the middle of a mountain. It was already very good to have an immortal emperor here, let alone a quasi-saint. The city lord of Luoxia City was only an immortal emperor. Naturally, he couldn't see through Ji Yufei's strength. Because he couldn't see through Ji Yufei's strength, the old immortal emperor became even more uneasy. The old immortal emperor welcomed Ji Yufei into the main hall of the city lord mansion. Ji Yufei didn't stand on ceremony and directly sat on the throne in the middle of the main hall, causing everyone in the hall to be astonished. Seeing Ji Yufei turning from guest to host, the old immortal emperor's white eyebrows couldn't help but tremble a few times. Although he was dissatisfied, he didn't dare to say anything. The high-ranking figures of Luoxia City on both sides of the main hall didn't know what to do. They all looked at the old immortal emperor. Fellow Daoist, the old immortal emperor felt very uncomfortable under everyone's gaze. In the end, he braced himself and said to Ji Yufei. However, he didn't have the confidence to say anything. I will be staying here for a while. Ji Yufei glanced at the old immortal emperor and said with an expressionless face. In the eyes of the strong, the weak could only be ordered around. The law of the jungle was the eternal law of the cultivation world. What? Everyone was taken aback when they heard this. Who was this person? He actually treated them as if they didn't exist. As soon as he arrived, he already regarded himself as the master of this place. This person was too arrogant. Some people in the main hall were very dissatisfied, but since these people were able to stand in the main hall, they were all astute people. When they saw that the old immortal emperor didn't even dare to breathe heavily in front of this person, they knew that this person wasn't a good person. Ji Yufei was sitting on the throne. The expressions of the people below naturally fell into his eyes, but he didn't care. With a wave of his hand, a void passage immediately appeared in the void. Two figures walked out of the void passage. These were two masked women. However, even though they were masked, everyone in the hall knew that these two fairies definitely possessed peerless beauty. Everyone in the hall felt dizzy when they saw the two women walking out of the void passage. That old immortal emperor's expression changed drastically. He could sense the cultivation of one of the women. That white-robed woman was actually a quasi-sage. A powerful sage aura permeated the air, causing his heart to palpitate. As for the other woman, he was still unable to see through her cultivation. Another sage. The old immortal emperor was incomparably shocked. Two sages and a quasi-sage actually came to Luoxia City at once. How could they still live? Father. After the veiled girl walked out of the void passage, she saw Ji Yufei sitting on the throne. She immediately rushed over and hugged Ji Yufei's arm. This is the heaven realm. Yang stood in the hall, sensing the pulse of the heaven and earth. Sure enough, the law of heaven and earth was very different from the human realm. Father, are we really in the heaven realm? Gulling asked excitedly. Yes, we are in the heaven realm. Ji Yufei patted Gulling's head dotingly and said with a smile. Haha, we are really in the heaven realm. Father, is there any fun place in the heaven realm? Gulling said excitedly. Linger, you only know how to play. You should work hard on your cultivation. At this time, Yang also walked over. The heaven realm is not like the human realm. If you wander around recklessly, be careful of getting into trouble. Ji Yufei said seriously. At this time, everyone in the hall was stunned by the conversation between Ji Yufei and his family. Even the old immortal emperor was the same. These people actually came from the human realm. From the human realm? How was this possible? The old immortal emperor was extremely shocked. The path to the mortal realm had long been severed. No one could enter the heaven realm from the human realm, and no one could enter the human realm from the heaven realm. Could it be that the legendary heaven road had reopened? The old immortal emperor had lived for countless years. Although he was the city lord of this remote Luoxia city, he more or less knew some of the secrets of the heaven realm. Alright, I'm going to go into seclusion. If you have something to do, just crush the talisman I gave you. As Ji Yufei spoke, he called out to the old immortal emperor, telling him to bring him to the cultivation place of the city lord mansion. He was going to undergo his tribulation. In the heaven realm, his cultivation was still not enough. If he encountered the Eastern Domain Heavenly Emperor, he might not be able to defeat him. Only by breaking through to the Saint Venerable realm could he compete with the experts in the heaven realm. Jiyu Fei had a premonition that if those disappeared supremes returned, he would be in trouble. At this time, everyone in the hall did not dare to breathe loudly. The origins of these three people were too big. It was hard to imagine that these three people were experts from the human realm who entered the heaven realm from the human realm. Although Luoxia City was located in a remote mountain, there was still a lot of news that spread to Luoxia City. Some people had already received the news that the ancient road to heaven had appeared. The Fire Emperor had even led 100,000 Fire Emperor's soldiers to attack the Western Underworld Sea. The failure of the Fire Emperor made the experts under the Southern Mountains God Emperor see an opportunity. These days, the Southern Mountains God Emperor's army and the Fire Emperor's soldiers were constantly in conflict. At this time, the atmosphere in the Southern Mountains was very tense. Compared to Luoxia City, the remote mountain did not have such a tense atmosphere. After Jiyu Fei explained some things to Yang and Jiyu Ling, he went into the back of the City Lord Mansion under the guidance of the old immortal emperor and went into seclusion. When Jiyu Fei entered the back hall, Jiyu Ling cheered and directly rushed out of the City Lord Mansion. Ling upon seeing this, Yang hurriedly chased after him, leaving behind a group of Luoxia City's higher-ups in the hall who were inexplicably surprised. The three people didn't put them in their eyes at all. Everyone, disperse. Just when everyone was at a loss as to what to do, the old immortal sovereign walked out from the back of the hall, sighed, and said to everyone, "City Lord, what's going on?" Someone couldn't help but ask, "What's going on?" The old immortal emperor said snappily. He was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. Who knew what he was feeling right now? "Who are these three people?" Someone asked carefully. "You ask me, who should I ask?" The old immortal emperor snorted coldly and directly walked out of the hall, ignoring the crowd. This. Chapter 2664. The old city lord of Luoxia City had been extremely depressed in the past few days. His city lord mansion had been requisitioned by Jiyu Fei, so he had no choice but to temporarily live in a courtyard outside the city. However, he quickly reported the situation of Luoxia City through a special channel. However, what puzzled the old immortal emperor was that the higher-ups didn't seem to have any reaction, nor did they send anyone to understand the situation. This made the old immortal emperor even more afraid to act rashly. One must know that two sages and a quasi-sage were absolutely not something the old immortal emperor could deal with unless the higher-ups sent someone. But now, the conflict between the South Mountain God Emperor and the Fire Emperor was constantly intensifying, and a war could break out at any time. At this time, who would care about a small city in the mountains? In this way, Jiyu Fei could carefully adjust his state without any interference and make the final preparations for the heavenly tribulation. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. In this half a month, Luoxia City was in chaos because of Jiyu Ling. Everyone knew that a little devil princess had come to Luoxia City. The playboys in Luoxia City were afraid of Jiyu Ling. Whenever Jiyu Ling appeared, they would take a detour. Some playboys even left Luoxia City in order to avoid Jiyu Ling. The immortal emperor's mansion was located in a valley 100 miles away from Luoxia City. Spiritual energy lingered around the place, and there were pavilions dotted among the green trees and flowers. There was also a spirit spring that lingered around the pavilion, and there was a small bridge over the flowing water. It was a quiet paradise on earth. Whoosh! On this day, a figure descended from the sky and landed outside the valley where the immortal emperor's mansion was located. "Oh, this old guy's courtyard is not bad." Jiyu Ling stood on a big stone and looked at the valley in front of her. She saw a spiritual light soaring into the sky in front of the valley. It was actually a place where spiritual energy gathered. This was absolutely unique in the Luoxia mountain range. One must know that Jiyu Ling had played all over the mountain range, and this was the only place she had not been to yet. There were no particularly powerful creatures in the mountains, So Jiyu Fei and Yang Er let Jiyu Ling play outside without restraining the little devil princess. I wonder if the old man is inside. A crafty glint flashed in Gulling's eyes, and she chuckled as she charged forward. She activated the void reflection technique of the 9 secrets of immortal Tao, and the mighty power of the technique immediately spread from her body. She seemed to have fused with the surrounding void, causing the void to distort. She directly passed through the great array that enveloped the entire valley and entered the valley without alerting anyone. What a great place! That old guy really knows how to enjoy life. When Jiyu Ling entered the valley and saw the scenery inside, his eyes lit up. The spiritual energy here was much denser than the outside world. In the center of the valley, there was a pavilion. Next to the pavilion was a small lake. This small lake was formed by the water of the spirit spring, and the spiritual energy was overwhelming. At this time, a little girl was sitting on a rock by the lake. She put her bare feet into the water and played with the water from time to time. At this moment, a figure silently appeared behind the little girl and looked at her with interest. The little girl looked no more than 4 or 5 years old. Her skin was very white, and she looked like a porcelain doll. Her hair was tied up in 2 pigtails, and she had an otherworldly temperament. After playing for a while, the little girl suddenly started coughing, and she couldn't stop. The more she coughed, the more severe it became. Finally, she spat out a mouthful of scarlet blood. Only then did she calm down. This, Jiyu Ling was very surprised. How could such a beautiful little girl be like this? Could it be that she had some sort of hidden illness? She hurriedly scanned the little girl's body with her spiritual will. There's something strange indeed. Jiyu Ling's heart trembled. This little girl probably didn't have long to live. If she didn't save her, she would only have a month left. At this time, Jiyu Ling sensed that someone was rapidly approaching. She hurriedly retreated into the pavilion and hid. Yang Er, why are you here? An old voice sounded, and the figure of a white-haired old man appeared behind the little girl. Grandpa, the little girl hurriedly stood up, and seemed to be a little flustered. Yang Er, didn't Grandpa tell you to recuperate in the house these few days? You really didn't listen. The old man shook his head helplessly. He was very clear about his granddaughter's condition. She probably wouldn't live for long, unless she found the legendary sacred medicine. However, sacred medicine wasn't that easy to find. The South Mountains God Emperor had a stock of sacred medicine, but sacred medicine was incomparably precious. Why would the South Mountains God Emperor use it for her? The old immortal emperor knew his own limitations. In the eyes of the South Mountains God Emperor, immortal emperors were actually no different from ants. This old immortal emperor originally had a son and daughter-in-law. However, his son and daughter-in-law died in a conflict with the Fire Emperor's war weapon, leaving behind a little girl. This little girl was injured when she was still in her mother's womb. Her body was invaded by a cold yin energy, and she suffered from extreme pain the moment she was born. The little girl's real age was over 10 years old, but her body grew slowly, and she still looked like a 4 or 5-year-old girl. Yang Er, come back with me. The old immortal emperor stretched out his hand towards the little girl and said, "En." The little girl nodded obediently and walked towards the old man. Old man, I didn't expect you to have such a cute granddaughter. Just as the old immortal emperor was about to take the little girl away, Jiyu Ling walked out of the pavilion. It's you. The old immortal emperor was shocked, but when he saw that the person who came was Jiyu Ling, he heaved a sigh of relief. How did you get in here? The old immortal emperor felt that something was wrong. One should know that this mansion of his was enveloped and protected by a grand formation. Ordinary cultivators couldn't enter at all. Hee, your place isn't some dragon's pool or tiger's den. Why can't I come in? Jiyu Ling said with a smile. Big sister, you're so beautiful. At this moment, the little girl that the old immortal emperor was holding suddenly said with an incomparably young voice. Huh? Jiyu Ling couldn't help but be startled. She was masked, so how could this little girl see her face? Just as Jiyu Ling was bewildered, she suddenly saw runes vanishing in the little girl's eyes. Innate Tao eyes. Jiyu Ling was shocked. This little girl wasn't simple. There was a tenacious vitality in her body that was resisting the cold energy in her body. Otherwise, she would have died the moment she was born, and definitely wouldn't have lasted until now. I've misjudged. So this little girl not only has innate Tao eyes, but she also has the wood elemental physique of the 5 elemental physiques. Chapter 2665. The innate eyes of the Tao could see through all illusions and see the origin. Ji Ling never thought that she would encounter the legendary innate eyes of the Tao. Furthermore, the person who possessed the innate eyes of the Tao was a little girl who was about to die. Although Ji Ling was masked, the little girl, Yang could still see her true appearance with a single glance. At this moment, the old immortal emperor seemed somewhat nervous. One must know that this mansion was protected by a grand formation. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to enter this place without a sound. Yet, the other party actually managed to do so. Innate Tao eyes, wood elemental physique. Little sister, your talent is truly shocking. Ji Ling was a quasi-saint, only a step away from becoming a saint. She had a fire elemental physique. She could tell that the little girl was extraordinary with a single glance. What do you want? The old immortal emperor protected the little girl behind him and spoke nervously. Hihi, if I had any hostility, you guys would have died countless times already. Ji Ling smiled. She never thought that she would meet such a heaven-defying existence in such a remote place. A person who had innate Tao eyes and wood elemental physique, one wouldn't be able to find a second one in the entire heaven realm. The old immortal emperor thought about it and agreed. The other party was a quasi-saint. Killing him would be like playing with a child. Sister, are you very powerful? The little girl popped her head out from behind the old immortal emperor and asked innocently. The little girl was already in her teens, but her body still looked like that of a 4 or 5-year-old. Moreover, she had been living here ever since she could remember things. Among the people she knew, other than her grandfather, there were only the 2 big sisters who served her. She had never met a stranger before. Of course, I'm even more powerful than your grandfather. Ji Ling spoke. She really liked this little girl. This little girl was like a celestial spirit from the heavens. She had a natural and transcendent aura. Perhaps even the heavens were jealous of this little girl, sending down such a calamity. It's true. The little girl had an innocent look. It's true. Are you willing to take me as your master? I will teach you supreme techniques. Ji Ling's love for talent was aroused. One must know that someone with innate Tao eyes and wood elemental physique was not someone she could easily meet. Since she met her, there was no reason to let her go. You have a way to save Yang When the old immortal emperor heard this, he couldn't help but tremble with excitement. He was very clear about his granddaughter's situation. Yang only had a month to live. The cold energy inside Yang body had been eating away at her life force. If Yang hadn't been born with a wood elemental constitution, she would have died a long time ago. Yang are you willing to take me as your master? Gulling ignored the old immortal emperor and looked seriously at the little girl as she spoke. Accepting a disciple wasn't a small matter. If this little girl didn't agree, she wouldn't force her. One must know that when a master accepts a disciple, it depends on fate, and when a disciple accepts a master, it also depends on fate. Yang at this moment, the old immortal emperor was incomparably nervous. He knew that since this woman wanted to accept Yang as her disciple, she would definitely be able to cure Yang This was Yang only hope of survival. Even if this woman couldn't save Yang there were still 2 saints behind her. When he thought of this, the old immortal emperor almost agreed on behalf of Yang Nothing was more important than Yang survival. Sister, do you know that Yang is dying? The little girl suddenly spoke in a sad tone. What? Gulling was very surprised when she heard this. She didn't expect that the little girl would say such a thing. Yang knows. Yang only has a month left to live. Yang doesn't want sister to be sad. Yang doesn't want to take you as my master. The little girl bit her lips as she spoke. Gulling's expression changed. This little girl was very sensible. She knew that her body was in a terrible state and she didn't want to take anyone as her master because she didn't want to be sad. What if I am able to cure you? Gulling pondered and asked. If that's the case, then I will take sister as my master. This way, I won't have to die, and grandpa won't have to be sad. The little girl instantly rejoiced when she heard this. Then why aren't you taking me as your master? Gulling smiled. How should I do it? The cute little girl tilted her head as she pondered. Hee. Gulling was somewhat speechless when she heard this. Yang quickly kneel down and kowtow to your master. The old immortal emperor came back to his senses and hurriedly spoke to the little girl. He was incomparably excited. This girl had a very powerful background. If he could form a relationship with these people, it would absolutely be what he wished for. When the little girl heard her grandfather's words, she immediately walked out from behind her grandfather's back obediently and knelt down in front of Gulling. All right, I hate these unnecessary formalities the most. Get up. You can be considered my disciple now. Gulling helped the little girl up. Yes, sister master. The little girl was very happy. The old immortal emperor was speechless when he saw this. Wasn't this too childish? One must know that accepting a disciple and acknowledging a master was an incomparably important matter. However, he didn't dare to say anything. If he made this girl unhappy and didn't accept Yang as her disciple, then Yang would die a month later. Even with the old immortal emperor's cultivation base, it would be hard for him to extend Yang life unless he found the legendary longevity fruit or invited a saint realm existence to treat Yang. Other than that, there was no other way to extend Yang life. The legendary longevity fruit was a sacred medicine. Even those saint venerables in the heavenly realm would find it difficult to obtain such a sacred medicine, let alone a puny immortal emperor. Immortal emperors in the current heavenly realm were no longer important figures. For example, the old immortal emperor could only be an ordinary city lord under the command of the Southern Mountains God Emperor. In the entire Southern Mountains, there were countless cities under the control of the Southern Mountains God Emperor. If Yang acknowledged this girl as her master, her life would not be in danger. Moreover, with Yang physique, she would definitely soar into the sky with a single leap. Her future would be limitless and she would be able to avenge her parents. The old immortal emperor's eyes couldn't help but turn red when he thought of Yang dead parents. Yang let's go. Master will bring you to a place to treat your injuries and then teach you a great technique. While speaking, Gulling directly crushed a jade talisman. A ball of divine light immediately rose from her hand and soared into the sky. A whirlpool immediately appeared above her head. She grabbed Yang and soared into the sky, instantly entering the whirlpool in the sky. Then, the whirlpool disappeared as if it had never appeared. When the old immortal emperor saw this scene, he was dumbfounded. Inner world, was this the legendary inner world? The old immortal emperor muttered to himself. At his level of cultivation, he naturally knew about the existence of inner worlds. However, it was definitely not an easy task to open up one that belonged to oneself. This mysterious girl was merely a quasi-saint, yet she had already opened up her own inner world. This was simply too heaven-defying. The old immortal emperor was truly stunned by Gulling. He couldn't regain his senses for a long time. At this time, Gulling brought Yang into Gu Fei's inner world. The old immortal emperor didn't know that the inner world that Gulling brought Yang into wasn't a world that she had opened up herself. Master, big sister, where is this place? On top of a mountain, the little girl held Gulling's hand and asked. This place was filled with lingering spiritual energy. The density of the spiritual energy here was even denser than the immortal emperor's side residence. The little girl had a wood elemental physique. Naturally, she could sense the huge vitality in this part of the world. This is a world opened up by your grandmaster. It's a divine land. I'll bring you to the divine spring of life now to heal your injuries. After speaking, Gulling directly soared into the sky with Yang flying towards the depths of this part of the world. Very quickly, they arrived at the periphery of the central region of this divine land, next to a divine spring of life. Yang couldn't help but feel incomparably shocked when she sensed the life essence gushing out from the spring. The amount of life essence in the spring was too vast. What made the little girl even more shocked was that there was actually a mystical plant next to the spring. It was a blood-colored tree with a blood-colored human-shaped fruit growing on it. Could this be the longevity fruit that Grandpa was talking about? Yang Er's mouth was agape as she spoke in disbelief. She actually saw the legendary longevity fruit. Was this real? Wasn't this just a dream? She still thought that she was dreaming. It's just a saint herb, there's no need to make a fuss about it. Gulling said disapprovingly. Big sister master, Grandpa once said that if I eat that fruit, I'll get better. The little girl pointed at the blood-colored fruit on the blood tree next to the spring. There's no need to eat any fruit. Just jump into the spring and soak in it. You'll quickly recover, Gulling said. The divine spring contained boundless life force. Not only could it cure Yang Er, but it could also stimulate her potential and make her body even stronger. Oh! Yang Er's expression was adorable, her eyes still unable to leave the longevity fruit. Go down. Gulling said to Yang Er. Yes, big sister master. Yang Er reluctantly withdrew her gaze and walked directly into the spring. Her entire body was submerged in the water, and the life essence immediately seeped into her through her pores. At this time, Ji Ling sat down on a boulder beside the heavenly spring. Very quickly, Yang Er's vitality was stimulated. A violet light appeared in her dantian, like a withered tree coming to life in the spring. Yang Er's life force was on the verge of being extinguished, and she only had a month to live. But now, her life force was reignited, and the life essence of the spring continued to seep into her body. Her life force grew stronger and stronger, until it was able to suppress the cold energy inside her. Chapter 2666. The heavenly spring of life was the rarest and most precious thing in the heavens and earth. It was the place where the chi of heaven and earth gathered. In just a little more than 2 hours, the cold yin chi in Yang Er's body was completely dissolved by the life essence. A powerful life fluctuation surged out from Yang Er's body. In her dantian, a purple light bloomed with resplendent light, illuminating her entire body. Not only did the yin chi in Yang Er's body disappear, the potential of her wood elemental physique was also stimulated. Her entire body was filled with vitality. Not bad. Ji Ling, who was sitting cross-legged on a large rock beside the heavenly spring of life, couldn't help but nod. The life essence was cleansing Yang Er's body. The pain Yang Er had endured for more than 10 years was cured in just a little more than 2 hours. This was even more effective than eating the longevity fruit. Yang Er didn't expect her master to have such means to heal her injuries so quickly. If the old immortal emperor knew that Ji Ling healed Yang Er in just 2 hours, his jaw would probably drop to the ground. He had worked hard for more than 10 years and still couldn't cure Yang Er. Yet, Ji Ling healed her in just 2 hours. This was the gap between them. Yang Er circulated her cultivation art, drawing the dense life essence into her body. Her body was undergoing an incredible change. Her flesh and blood were trembling as her body slowly grew. Her appearance and height changed from 4 to 8 years old. Her entire being was filled with spiritual chi, like the most outstanding masterpiece of the heavens. The purple light in Yang Er's dantian continued to grow. The purple light was filled with vitality, illuminating all the muscles and bones in her body. A vast life force surged through her body. Her meridians glowed like spider webs as they appeared on her body. Yang Er's body was still transforming. She was like a plant filled with vitality, crazily absorbing the nutrients in the surroundings. One had to say that the life force of a wood elemental physique was truly tenacious. After 1 day and 1 night, Yang Er finally stopped and walked out of the heavenly spring. She had a feeling that she hadn't had enough and didn't want to leave the heavenly spring. The boundless life force in the heavenly spring would definitely be of great benefit to her. Very good. Gulling, who was sitting cross-legged on the boulder, opened her eyes and stood up. She looked at Yang Er, who had already walked to the bottom of the boulder. At this moment, Yang Er was like a completely different person from her sickly appearance from before. She was full of energy, and the sickly look on her face had long disappeared. Her height had also changed, and her original clothes seemed to be too narrow for her. Ji Ling didn't have any clothes for the little girl, so he could only buy some clothes, shoes, socks, and other daily necessities for Yang Er. Sister Master. The little girl bowed to Jiyu Ling. Not bad, I will teach you the cultivation method of our sect. Guling jumped down from the boulder. He extended his right index finger and pointed it at Yang Er's forehead. A ripple of consciousness immediately followed his finger and imprinted itself into Yang Er's mind. In an instant, Yang Er felt as if something was forcibly shoved into her mind. Soon, Jiyu Ling retracted his finger. All right, take your time to cultivate here. I will come back in a month to test you. Understood. Jiyu Ling left for the place where the Meng family was located after giving them some instructions. There should be quite a lot of clothes for little girls in the Meng family. When Jiyu Ling arrived at the valley where the Meng family resided, Meng Long personally welcomed his uncle master into a pavilion of the Meng family. Martial uncle, why are you back again? Are you still thinking about the ancestral dragon herb? Meng Long knew that Jiyu Ling wanted to capture the ancestral dragon herb, but it wasn't easy to do so. Even if she threatened and bribed it, it would only succeed temporarily. In the end, the ancestral dragon herb would still be able to come and go as it pleased, and no one could restrain it. No, martial nephew, I have something for you to do for me. Jiyu Ling said to Meng Long. Martial uncle, feel free to tell me what you need. Meng Long hurriedly replied respectfully. Very well, help me find a few sets of clothes for 7 or 8-year-old girls. Jiyu Ling said. What? It's that simple? Meng Long couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. He thought that Jiyu Ling had something important for him to do, but he didn't expect it to be to buy clothes for the little girl. What are you waiting for? Jiyu Ling said impatiently. Yes. Martial nephew, I will do it immediately. After saying that, Meng Long bowed towards Jiyu Ling. Then, he turned around and walked out of the pavilion. He left to do what Jiyu Ling had instructed him to do. Not long after, Meng Long returned. You finished it so quickly? Jiyu Ling was a little surprised. She took a spatial pouch and opened it. There were only a dozen sets of clothes for the little girl, and nothing else. She put the spatial pouch away and left the valley. She went to the heavenly spring of life where Yang Er was and handed the spatial pouch to her. All right, this time, I'm really going to leave, Yizichen said. Jiyu Ling crushed a jade talisman in her hand. A ball of light rushed out from her hand and instantly enveloped her. Then, the ball of light and the ball of light dissipated. She disappeared into the void as well. Sister Master, before Yang Er could react, Jiyu Ling had already left. This time, Jiyu Ling really left the divine land and appeared in the old immortal emperor's mansion. At this time, the old immortal emperor was still walking back and forth in a daze. Senior, my granddaughter, when the old immortal emperor saw Guling, he quickly asked about Yang Er. Jiyu Ling didn't hide anything and directly told him about Yang Er's situation. Hearing that Yang Er had been cured, the old immortal emperor shed tears. His granddaughter had been tortured the moment she was born and suffered countless hardships. It was already a miracle that she was able to live until now. Now that Yang Er was fine, he could finally put down a huge stone in his heart. This was Yang Er's good fortune to have met such an extraordinary person. After suffering comes happiness. Senior, can I see Yang Er? The old immortal emperor was a little hesitant, but in the end, he still made such a request. After all, Jiyu Ling was his only relative. His enemy was incomparably powerful. He thought that there was no hope for revenge in this life, but he never thought that there would be a turning point at this time. The fire of hatred buried deep in his heart once again sprang out. Not now, 1 month later. Jiyu Ling said and directly left the old immortal emperor's mansion and returned to Luoxia city. The old immortal emperor was helpless. One should know that the other party was a quasi-saint. He didn't dare to force the other party. He could only respectfully send Jiyu Ling out of the mansion. At this time, Jiyu Fei had already adjusted his state of mind and martial body to its best state. Then, he called Yang Er and Jiyu Ling, the mother and daughter, and gave them some instructions before leaving Luoxia city. Jiyu Fei was about to transcend his tribulation. The heavenly sovereign tribulation was very important to Jiyu Fei. It was related to whether or not he could become the strongest expert in the world in the future. At this time, He had to start paving the way to become a sovereign. By transcending the tribulation in a flawless world, his Tao would gradually transform into a flawless state. Since ancient times, all the sovereigns that had appeared were supreme existences that had comprehended the true meaning of flawless. Such existences had truly transcended the 3 realms and 6 paths. They were invincible in the heavens and earth. They were the strongest existences that had ever existed. Jiu Fei walked into the depths of the mountain and sat cross-legged on the peak of a huge mountain. He thought for a long time, then took out a formation platform and activated the teleportation formation. With the help of the formation platform, he directly left the southern mountains. He was traveling across domains. In the eastern domain, in a small hidden world, there was a city. This city was the core of this world. A strong vitality was emitted from the city. There were many residents in the city and most of them were cultivators. In the middle of the city, there was an ancient formation platform. This ancient formation platform had not been used for a very long time and was covered with a thick layer of dust. Today, however, the ancient platform began to tremble. Ancient runes began to appear on the platform, emitting a dazzling divine light. What's going on? The experts in the ancient city were immediately alarmed. 9 figures appeared around the ancient formation platform at almost the same time. The people in the square all hid far away. Among the 9 figures, a masked woman in black emitted the most powerful aura. Her entire body was shrouded in a chilling aura, giving off a surreal feeling. Could it be that there are still experts from our sect who haven't died and are about to return? The mysterious woman's voice rang out. How is that possible? How can there still be experts from our sect outside? A middle-aged man with a black beard said loudly. His voice was like a great bell, spreading far and wide. In the past few years, the Eastern Domain Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu had chased them to the ends of the earth. One by one, they fell under Yuan Gu's butcher knife. The followers of this sect had already disappeared from the outside world. The small world was the last pure land that they could stay in. Just as everyone was in shock, the ancient formation platform emitted a dazzling divine light. A spatial passage appeared on the ancient formation platform. Everyone stared anxiously at the exit of the spatial passage. Some of them were already holding a magic tool in their hands. If there were any changes, they would immediately take action. Soon, a figure appeared in the spatial passageway and walked out of it. It's you. Chapter 2667. The profound Nether sect was once a great sect in the Heavenly Realm's Eastern Land. It was able to contend against the Eastern Land's Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu. However, as the Eastern Land's Heavenly Emperor Yuan Gu's strength grew stronger and stronger, the Eastern Land's Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu finally could not help but attack the profound Nether sect. No one could stop Heavenly Emperor Yuan Gu's determination to unify the Eastern Earth of the Heavenly Realm. Hence, after a huge battle, the mysterious Dark Sect lost miserably. In that battle, almost all the higher-ups of the mysterious Dark Sect, including the Sect Master, were wiped out by Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu. Only a few people managed to escape. The mysterious Dark Sect's Holy Maiden was very lucky. That battle happened very suddenly, and she wasn't in the ancestral land of the mysterious Dark Sect at the time. Hence, she was able to escape. Back then, Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu was extremely powerful. He broke through the ancestral land of the mysterious Dark Sect and ruthlessly hunted down the remaining members of the mysterious Dark Sect. The mysterious Dark Sect originally had 13 secret realms created by generations of sages. They were known as the 13 mysterious underworld realms. However, only one of the 13 realms was left now. It had to be said that Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu was really terrifying. In recent years, Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu had almost completely eradicated the remaining forces of the mysterious Dark Sect. Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu had broken through the secret realms of the mysterious Dark Sect one by one. However, Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu hadn't been able to find the exact location of the last realm of the 13 mysterious underworld realms. Once Heavenly Emperor Yuan Jiyu found and broke through the last realm of the mysterious Dark Sect, the mysterious Dark Sect would be completely erased from the heavenly realm. Meanwhile, in the last realm of the mysterious Dark Sect, Everyone was nervously staring at the person who walked out of the void passage. "Why is it you?" The mysterious dark holy maiden couldn't help but exclaim when she saw the person. This person was Jiyu Fei, who had disappeared from the heavenly realm for a long time. "I didn't expect to see an old friend as soon as I arrived. How fortunate." After Jiyu Fei walked out of the void passage, the runes on the ancient formation platform dimmed, and the void passage behind him disappeared into the void. "Who is this person?" someone said in a low voice. Everyone was incomparably shocked. It should be known that this ancient platform had not been used for a very long time. Who exactly was this fellow who had suddenly appeared? What was his relationship with the Xianming sect? Many people were curious, but there were even more people who felt uneasy. The celestial ruler of the Eastern Land had countless tricks up his sleeves. In order to eradicate the remaining forces of the Xianming sect, he would do anything. Jiyu Fei was only acquainted with the Xianming Holy Lady. He had never seen the other members of the Xianming sect before. "Brother Jiyu, I didn't expect you to still remember me." The Xianming saintess stepped forward. When they heard the Xianming Holy Lady's words, all the high-ranking members of the Xianming sect were surprised. They hadn't expected the Xianming Holy Lady to know this person. Among these people, a handsome middle-aged man stared at Jiyu Fei with a hint of displeasure on his face. "Hehe, I was just trying it out. I didn't expect it to work." Jiyu Fei smiled and said. What he said was the truth. He wasn't sure if the spatial coordinates that the Xianming Holy Lady had given him could still be used. Hence, he had tried to activate the transfer array platform. If the small world of the Xianming sect no longer existed, the spatial coordinates that Jiyu Fei had inserted into the transfer array platform wouldn't have activated the transfer array platform. However, if the transfer array platform could still be activated, it meant that the small world of the Xianming sect still existed. He could then travel across domains and come here. Jiyu Fei had traveled across domains from the Nanling Mountains. He hadn't expected to see the Xianming Holy Lady as soon as he walked out of the spatial channel. The Xianming Holy Lady hadn't perished while being chased by the primordial celestial ruler. "Come to my place. Let's have a good gathering." When she saw that the person who had come was Jiyu Fei, the Xianming Holy Lady's eyes sparkled like the stars in the sky. She invited Jiyu Fei to her cultivation place. "All right." Jiyu Fei nodded. He also wanted to understand the current situation in the Eastern Land. He wasn't in a hurry to undergo the tribulation, so he suppressed his cultivation. "Wu Chu, what's going on?" A black-bearded daoist beside the middle-aged man said as he watched the Xianming saintess and Jiyu Fei walk away. He couldn't help but glance at the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man called Wu Chu snorted coldly. His face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip water. He stared at Jiyu Fei's back with a vicious look in his eyes. He had pursued the Xianming Holy Lady for many years, but the Holy Lady had always been cold to him. She hadn't even invited him to her cultivation place in the small world. However, that fellow had actually been invited to her cultivation place as soon as he arrived. This made Wu Chu very unhappy. He hated and envied Jiyu Fei at the same time. "That fellow is just a pretty boy. Compared to you, Saint King Wu Chu, he's just like mud under the soles of your feet." The black-bearded daoist continued. Wu Chu didn't say anything. At this moment, Jiyu Fei and the Xianming Holy Lady disappeared into a bamboo forest. Behind the bamboo forest was the Xianming Holy Lady's cultivation place, Green Bamboo Lake. The small world of the Xianming sect was hundreds of thousands of miles wide. Such a vast world was even bigger than the territory of some small countries in the human realm. With Xianming City as the center, the Xianming sect ruled this part of the world and was the ruler of this world. Green Bamboo Lake was less than 100 miles away from Xianming City. The entire lake could be seen from the sky above Xianming City. Wu Chu even saw two figures strolling by the lake. Wu Chu's face was gloomy as he flew down from the sky and directly entered the city lord's mansion. He was the great elder of the Xianming sect. The position of the sect lord was still vacant. As the great elder, he was the actual controller of the Xianming sect. The black-bearded Daoist glanced in the direction of Green Bamboo Lake and sneered. He also flew down from the sky and entered the city lord's mansion. The Holy Lady is a little too much. She is the Holy Lady of our sect. How could she be so close to a strange man? In the city lord's mansion of Shenming City, there were a few leaders of the Shenming sect. However, the throne in the middle of the hall was empty. Only the sect lord of the Shenming sect was qualified to sit on it. That's right. We need to find out the background of that man. The black-bearded Daoist glanced at the great elder Wu Chu and said, "That person could cross the region to come here. I'm afraid he's not a good person." A white-haired old man said hesitantly. He had some concerns. If he offended someone he shouldn't offend, the consequences would be unimaginable. The Shenming sect couldn't afford to make any more enemies. HMPH. Do you think our Shenming sect is easy to offend?